Happy Tuesday, everybody. Welcome to the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Happy to be with you once again. Fun show lined up for you. You just heard the tease from James Peterson. One small audible to call the Gov. Spencer Warren, we're going to have to take a rain check with the Gov because he had something come up. But World Cup soccer begins on Thursday and will be continuing for several weeks, so we will have plenty to talk about in that world whenever he can jump on. Kristen Peak is going to join us ahead of the upcoming NBA draft. That is rapidly approaching. Ari Temkin joins us at 1:30. Big 12 Radio on TuneIn, and, of course, a Big 12 insider. He's going to have some thoughts on what will be the lead story today, the biggest thing as the Gordy Chiesa also at 11:30 because it's a Tuesday. Lots of meat on the bone with the NBA playoffs, with the NBA Finals. New York goes up 2-0. San Antonio makes it a series. Claws one back, deflates things inside Madison Square Garden a little bit. Imagine if you spent $55,000 for a ticket to watch the team lose. That is the number one concern for me anytime I'm just like, ooh, should I buy this like Super Bowl ticket for the San Francisco 49ers last time they were playing in Vegas? I can't do it. I can't justify it. I have mouths to feed at home. And then I felt vindicated and justified in not purchasing a Super Bowl ticket because
it's tough when they lose, man.
Oh,
yeah.
It's like the ROI on a winning performance. Like if Jalen Brunson goes off, scores 12 consecutive points, closes out a victory at Madison Square Garden, you're just like, money is immaterial. You can't take it with you when you die. That experience was worth however much I paid for it. If you're like, oh, man, 115, 111. Even if they go on to win the series, you're going to be like, yeah, I was there for the game where they lost for the first time since April.
Yeah, they might have, even if they win in 5 games, that's the only – you were at the game, the only loss they had. I'll say this too. Saw this stat. If you're watching last night, you saw it on the graphic right before tip-off. Right after the game ended. I think this is the second or third time that the road team has won the first 3 games in NBA Finals history. First time since the 1993 Phoenix Suns, led by Charles Barkley, who just happened to be on the floor for inside the NBA for this game. So Ernie Johnson very savvily looked at him and said, you guys lost your first 2 games at home against the Bulls. How did you win Game 3? That Game 3, by the way, in Chicago, triple overtime win for the Suns as they were down 0-2, licking their wounds from a bad homestand. So this is first time since those guys, those Suns won. They lost all 3 games at home, won 2 road games, but not back-to-back, so they ended up going down 3-1. The Spurs, if you figure, got to do it differently than they did. Don't just extend the series to a Game 6. Later on, send it back to the Garden. Win tonight and put the series back in your favor. We'll see how it goes. Or win tomorrow night and put the series back in your favor. We'll see how it goes.
By the way, the get-in price is a paltry $4,600 if you want to go to this next game. That is for you're sitting in the 400s section, okay?
Jeez.
So at Madison Square Garden, you've got Celebrity Row and all that. Those are the single-digit sections. Those are section 4, 5, and 6. All right,
soon to be named after Spike Lee and company.
And then you've got the regular, like any other arena. You got the 100s, which are your lower bowl seats. You've got the loge seating, you've got the suites, things like that. You've got the 200s, which are some upper bowl seats. You've got the 300s, which are like you're basically tied to the rafters, okay? And they're not fancy like the upcoming Delta Center gondola seating. and you got the 400s. Those are on the basket ends, way up there, hanging. Like, you have to look around the Walt Clyde Frazier banner. You have to wait
obstructed view seating.
You have to wait for the air conditioner to flutter the banners out of the way so that you could. Oh, I just saw. I think that was Jalen Brunson. That was cool. Otherwise, you're just looking at the back of a bed sheet the whole time.
$4,600 for
$4,600. Anyway, we'll talk about that with Gordy Chiesa. We'll talk about the Stanley Cup final. But the big story, really, in the sports world, and certainly here in the state of Utah, we are very much a college football state. I think until the Jazz get good again, it is the primary driver of sports fan interest here in our state. I think the state we find college football in with a vested interest because it's a Big 12 team, because it's a player you watched at Rice-Eccles Stadium last year, because it's a very obvious risk, affront, slap in the face to teams that you care about, you are familiar with. The Brendan Sorsby scenario, where he has been granted an injunction by a Dallas judge, a Fort Worth judge, who had to be brought in, flown in to hear the appeals in Lubbock County, because all of the Lubbock judges are somehow on paper tied to Texas Tech. Remember, the initial judge who was assigned to it recused himself because there's a bunch of pictures of him and his wife at Red Raider Club, the Matador Club, at Matador Club events. So he recused himself, and all of us were like, oh, okay. Showing a little integrity there. Nice guy. And then you go down the list, you get down to judge number 8, and you're like, okay, you know what? All these guys or gals, they have something to do with Texas Tech. We're going to have to find a neutral party. The problem is you brought in a neutral party that went to law school with these guys anyway, or was in some kind of, golf or poker game with these guys. I know Texas is a big state, but there's not an unlimited supply of judges on this level of power. So they all know each other. And, pat my back, I'll pat yours, scratch my back, I'll scratch yours, whatever. I don't trust at all that process went cleanly, smoothly, or without corruption. But at the end of the day, my opinion of that doesn't matter. What happens is Brendan Sorsby is eligible, despite the fact that he bet thousands of times, sometimes illegally. Well, actually not sometimes illegally. Many, 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 many times illegally. Either he was underage, which you can't be on the betting apps. It's criminal. And I am not going to get on some high horse and tell you, oh, how dare he be a 19-year-old betting? It's like 19-year-olds on college campuses drinking. They're on college campuses smoking. They're on college campuses doing a bunch of stuff they're not supposed to be doing. And, yes, they're also on college campuses betting before they're allowed to bet. And that's neither here nor there for me. It is also illegal, prosecutable, if you are gambling based on non-public insider knowledge, based on trade secrets. Every gambling watchdog place flags irregular betting activity for exactly that. Now, clearly in Brendan Sorsby's case, he was not using his information to share with a bunch of other people to tell somebody else how to bet, but he was, and I've said it many times, and you've heard it many times, you read it in a bunch of articles, he was betting on teams that he was a member of, on a team at least that he was a member of. He was also betting on every other thing, which I suppose supports his case that there's nothing nefarious here. I'm just a gambling addict. It's a mental health condition. It's an issue. And this judge granted his injunction, granted his eligibility, and the appeal will happen in February, which, conveniently is well after the college football season will be played, based on the assumption that it will cause irreparable harm to Brendan Sorsby's psyche, etc., if he does not participate because of his own actions, because of his own choices. We have, once again, this time with a judge, with a justice of the peace, with an officer of the courts, we have once again failed as the adults in the room to say, yes, young people, there actually are going to be consequences for your immoral, illogical, and yes, in this case, many times, illegal actions. And one of those consequences is going to be that you don't get to be paid $5 million or whatever the real number is to be the starting quarterback for Texas Tech University. And if you're in Lubbock, remember last week when I came on and I said, you know what's fascinating? They're just leaning into being the villain in all of sports. That it's Texas Tech versus everybody. That was before this judge granted the injunction, granted the eligibility. Now it really is becoming Texas Tech versus everybody. Texas Tech versus the Big Ten and the SEC teams that are like, we're not going to play you. We're not going to schedule you in any other sports. Texas Tech potentially versus the commissioner's office, Brett Yormark, and the Big 12 Conference. Certainly Texas Tech versus everyone in the Big 12, but it was already going to be that way. Texas Tech versus the NCAA, they already won. They already won that battle. They're doing the Allen Iverson step over on the corpse of the NCAA authority.
Steps over, Teron Lou.
And just, sorry about that, guys.
Incredible call by Marv Albert.
By the way, good luck trying to stop this. You can't. You're toothless. And not toothless like the cool dragon from How to Train Your Dragon. Toothless in like the granny whose dentures fell out and can't do anything to defend anyone anymore. All you need now is a maybe slightly corrupt judge or a judge who owes somebody else a favor or a judge who doesn't really have skin in the game either way and just likes to see the world burn, whatever it is. All you need now in the NCAA world, all you need is a judge to say, I'm granting a temporary injunction. I'm granting a restraining order. I'm granting an antitrust exemption. I'm granting based on some stupid made-up. Brendan Sorsby, you are lying. Texas Tech, you are lying. Everyone in your life is lying if you are pretending that the only reason you got caught up in this was because it was a mental health issue. I fully accept that it became an addiction for him. But if you're an alcoholic, that's an addiction, and you drive drunk, there's consequences. If you're a drug addict and you deal to fund your habit, you're a drug addict, and you sell to fund your habit, you're a drug addict and you steal to fund your habit, there are consequences. We are snowplowing the consequences out of the way of Brendan Sorsby. And here's the thing. I have no, gripe against the guy. I don't. I think there's been a lot of people who've done a lot worse things, and we have gotten out of their way with any kind of justice. And this is why I'm wagging my finger at everything and everybody right now. Okay, I'm becoming the old man, get off my lawn again, because while I think it is absurd, performative, ridiculous, disgusting that Texas Tech is being, digging themselves in on their position, Texas Tech could just say, oh man, we didn't know about this. Cincinnati knew about this. Everybody go attack Cincinnati. We didn't know about this with Brendan Sorsby. They could just say, we're washing our hands of this. This is a bad deal. Cody Campbell could be saying, hey, guys, nobody told me that I was going to be expected to pay the salary on a dude who bet thousands and thousands of times and was going to drag my beloved university into the depths of PR hell. Nobody told me that. I'm pulling my support. They could easily say that. You know how easy it would be for Joey McGuire to just say, hey, we didn't know this about Brendan Sorsby. And doesn't fit the Matador culture, doesn't fit the Red Raider team that I'm trying to build. We wish him well. We want good things for him. We'll let him keep his signing bonus because it's no skin off our back. But we cannot abide by this. We believe in the competitive integrity, blah, blah, blah. If I'm Will Hammond, I am transferring right now. I'm unenrolling from school. I'm doing the ghost transfer thing. I'm joining the track team for 5 minutes, and I'm transferring as a track athlete. I'm becoming a member of the women's volleyball team for 5 minutes so that I can transfer in their window or whatever. If I'm the guy who's the backup, who's coming off an injury, who was awesome in relief last year, I'm probably already like, oh, man, they're bringing this other guy in because they don't think I'm going to recover from this injury fast enough. Dang. That's okay. When it comes down to it, I'm going to play great football when it's my turn to play great football. If I'm looking at this and I'm saying the university that I have committed to and played some good football for already and I got hurt for and I am rehabbing for, that university is willing to drag all of us through the mud for the sake of this guy who's never played a down for us at my position. And I'm going to be back in week 4, or I'm going to be back in week 5. And they're already saying they'll at least suspend him for a couple of weeks. My university is not going to give me 2 extra weeks. They don't, excuse me. They don't believe in me enough. They don't believe in Will Hammond enough to give 2 extra weeks of time off for recovery in order to avoid being the butt of every NCAA eligibility, legality joke from now until the end of college football as we know it. My coaching staff, Cody Campbell, my university president, my athletic director, don't think I am enough of a talent of a solution at the quarterback position that they're at least willing to avoid being the absolute face of corruption and a failure of the system. So they're going to ride with Brendan Sorsby instead of me. If I'm Will Hammond, I'm going to that same judge that just granted his eligibility, and I'm saying, I need you to give me some kind of funny exemption so I can go transfer to play for Kansas or whomever. Get me the you-know-what out of here. I don't want to be part of this circus. I'm a good player at this position, and they're digging so far in on this guy who's done nothing for our program so far at my expense. I can't even imagine how that feels. But the reason everyone gets the finger wag right now, think of any infraction, any dubious sort of moral activity, any crime that could possibly be committed, and at some point, a relatively prominent college football player has crossed that line. At some point. All right? We have, over the course of our collective fandom, cheered for or at least been silent on and kind of politely looked the other way on athletes, prominent athletes in some cases, that have been found guilty of or accused of or known to have participated in academic fraud, certainly. Cheating on your homework was a time-honored tradition, right? Performance-enhancing substances have been a big problem at different eras of college sports. Different programs have been more guilty than others. But certainly that level of cheating, people have turned a sort of a blind eye to or an apathetic eye to for many, many years in many, many different cases. The underage drinkings, the DUIs, the domestic abuse allegations, the sexual assaults, the evading arrests. I mean, we have on tape guys that have ran away from the cops and been tackled by the cops. Baker Mayfield, I'm talking to you. You gave that guy a Heisman Trophy, right?
By the way, also in the Big 12.
Also in the Big 12 at the time.
At the time.
Right? It was Joe Mixon. Remember Joe Mixon? Knocked a girl unconscious on security tape in a bar.
Hold on. He got drafted in the second round instead of the first round, so time served, right, OC? No.
And like a full-grown, muscular man punched a girl in the face hard, snapped her head off her body practically because she allegedly called him an offensive name. And I don't think people, if that's exactly what happened with her, I don't think she should go without consequences. But that consequence was something that, like, we were just like, oh, but Joe Mixon's a really good football player. So here's where I think I separate myself from the herd. I'm with everyone who's just like, yeah, Texas Tech, Sorsby, bring the hammer down. The SEC, don't schedule Texas Tech. Okay. Big Ten, this is the line you want to draw in the sand? Yeah. Screw this. This is corruption. This is a threat to the integrity of the games that we actually want to be able to watch and doubt the outcomes of. Yeah, let's fight this battle. But then I also go, well, wait a minute. How many players have you let play at a Big Ten school, at an SEC school, at any conference school? How many times have you sat in your seat up there in the president's box? How many times have you gone to the press conference and said, no comment, when there was some player who committed a real crime, a violent crime, a harmful crime, something that undermined everything that college athletics are supposed to be about? How many times have you said, you know what, as long as we put this student, as long as he's in the transfer portal, or as long as it's expunged from his record? We have so many times, and I'm talking about thousands and thousands and thousands of times. We have so many times, all of us are guilty of this, just conveniently forgotten about the worst behaviors because the guy's talented. And oddly enough, everyone is choosing to die on this hill with Brendan Sorsby. It's not dissimilar from when everyone decided to die on the Ray Rice hill, because with Ray Rice, we saw it on tape. And by all means, Ray Rice deserved to have the hammer come down. Ray Rice deserved to have his opportunities taken away from him because he committed a terrible, heinous, violent, awful crime against someone weaker than him. He was also one of like 1,000 dudes in a 3-year span who had similar infractions. It's probably an exaggeration, but many, many, many dudes, many people had done that same thing. His was caught on tape. Joe Mixon's thing was caught on tape, but Joe Mixon was just like, yeah, but you know what? He was a kid, and it was kind of obscure enough that we here in the NFL don't have to worry about it. So time served, because like James said, he lost a little bit of bonus money in his draft position. We are doing this thing. Again, we are failing by saying this thing is the thing that matters to us because it's the betting and it's the gambling and it's the sports books and it's the partnerships and it's the revenue and it's all that. So this matters to us. So I'm gonna be the Big Ten. And this doesn't directly affect me at all, by the way. And I'm going to look at it and I'm going to say, yep, I have a problem with that. And I'm going to be in the SEC. Oh, I got a problem with you, Texas Tech. How dare you do this? We would never allow a criminal to play on one of our fields. We would never grant eligibility to someone who is accused of or guilty of a heinous crime. We would never let an addict play for one of our teams. And so all the self-righteous stuff gets really thin when you start comparing. And I know it's apples to oranges in a lot of these cases. And I know that the Sorsby thing deserves to be punished. But our selective outrage in what we want to punish so universally is pretty dumb. It's pretty embarrassing, honestly. Betting is one of the time-honored things that we have to protect in college sports. Well, no, I get it. You're not protecting betting. You're protecting the integrity of the competition.
The sport from betting.
But here's the thing. Maybe he had insider knowledge when he was betting. He was betting in favor of his team to win. The one thing he is not accused of here, Brendan Sorsby, is any kind of like match fixing, game fixing, throwing points, shaving, none of that. He's not accused of any of that. He is guilty of, admittedly, of betting on things he was not supposed to be betting on thousands of times over, which, by the way, is enough by itself to make him ineligible. And up until this weekend was always enough to make a player permanently ineligible to compete in college sports. And Texas Tech decided, you know what? This is the hill we're going to die on. We're going to fight this. We're going to find a judge who's willing to fight it with us. And now we've got this guy playing. And everyone else in the college football world says, oh, you were ready to die on that hill. And because you were able to take the hill, you got the high ground there. You won that battle. Now we are all going to take up our banners and we are going to march and we are going to protest and we are going to die on this hill also, Texas Tech, except we are going to do it by saying we hate you, we don't like you, we are judging you, and we would never do this thing that you're doing. If I'm Texas Tech, I'm saying Georgia has come out and said that they don't want to play us in any sport. Georgia softball's not going to play us. Georgia basketball's not going to play us. Most importantly, Georgia football's not going to play us. Here's what we are accused of. Here's what we are guilty of. Letting the betting guy play starting quarterback for us. Here is what we think you should care about with Georgia football. And I'm listing every single traffic infraction, every single the vehicular manslaughter guy. I'm listing all of it. You want to play in the mud? Let's play in the mud. You want to start muck slinging? Let's go. Like, I'm so grateful that Utah's not involved in this directly. I'm actually very grateful. While I thought Mark Harlan's statement was pretty good, pretty comprehensive, I made a couple of phone calls, didn't get anything extra, like how mad Utah really is about this, whether or not they want to die on this hill the way that some of these other places are trying to die on this hill. But I don't want Utah to take that stance. I don't want to play Texas Tech then. You're going to let Sorsby play? We don't want to play him then. No, give me Sorsby. Give me everyone else. I'll beat you. That's what I want Utah's stance to be. I don't know what Utah's official stance is going to be. That's what I want Utah's stance to be. Because what I don't want is for anyone to stand in a glass house and throw stones and say, well, yeah, you can't let a betting guy play. Because guess what? Even Utah's got skeletons in the closet. And BYU, if you think you're any better, I promise you're worse. Okay? BYU, I better not hear any self-righteous kind of like, well, betting is terrible and we better not play against Texas Tech if they've got this Sorsby guy. There are people on the BYU roster right now that should be in prison. And I'm not talking about the guy that's already been caught. I'm not talking about the guy that's already off the team. You do not want to start digging up the skeletons in the closet. You do not want to point a finger at another program. If you're Utah, if you're BYU, if you're Arizona State, if you're anyone, you do not want to say, you are the bad guys here. Texas Tech is like, yeah, we'll be the bad guys. But you don't. We will say that about ourselves. You don't get to point the fingers. This is going to get so hideously ugly When Brendan Sorsby is allowed to play and universities, athletic departments are forced to make the decision, do we want to play against them? If they're letting that guy play, if their answer is yes, we all have to accept the fact that the NCAA has no authority, that these corrupt judges can just fix any problem for anybody. We all have to accept that. Or we have to accept the fact that Texas Tech and anyone who supports what they are doing is going to say, all right, your moral high ground on this betting thing is actually not a good place for you to stand because of example X, Y, Z. This is going to become the negative political campaign ads in college sports. And I promise you, all of us are going to hate it. It's going to be a distraction all year. It's going to be a storyline. Every time Texas Tech wins a close game and Brendan Sorsby plays well, it's going to be one of those things, oh, shouldn't have even played him. They shouldn't have him available. And if I'm Will Hammond and Will Hammond's family, I am seething on the sideline and I'm saying, get me out of here, because now I am catching the strays from this. I'm the guy who should be playing in these games because I never did the betting thing. I followed the rules. I guess I'm making some assumptions there, but let's assume. Prepare for college sports to be uglier than it's ever been, people. That's what this judge in Texas decided he was okay with. We'll get back into this a little bit later on in the show. Off to a hot start. I am literally warm in the studios right now because this bothers me that much. Gordy Chiesa to talk NBA Finals next. It's the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Oh, we welcome in Gordy Chiesa, our resident NBA guru, for a conversation about these NBA finals. Things got a lot more interesting after a surprising first couple of games in San Antonio. The circus packs up, returns to Madison Square Garden. What an epic night. And the San Antonio Spurs go to MSG and beat the New York Knicks 115-111, Game 3, to make it 2-1 in favor of the Knicks. They still have home court advantage here, but it shows you that when this Spurs team turns it on and plays right, this series can be exactly what we hope it will be. Gordy Chiesa, welcome to the show. How are you, sir?
Sean, I'm doing well. And add to that, it was a garden party, and the Spurs were the crasher of the party. And this showed you the ability to get yourself focused from the opening tap, and that's what the Spurs did. They were ready to play, and the Knickerbockers, to their credit, they tried to battle hard, but they was almost like self-inflicting, those costly turnovers and their absolutely bizarre fouling. And that was a big controversy, Sean, as far as half a day later was the foul discrepancy, where Mike Brown was complaining to the lead official, Mark Davis, who was the crew chief, that in the second half that the Spurs shot 24 free throws and Knicks only shot 8. And part of the reason was that absolutely the Spurs were the aggressor and that the Knickerbockers, I call it, Sean, were playing a machete defense, chop, chop, where they were physical, but those last split second, they were absolutely fouling the Spurs, rolling to the basket, being Wembanyama, or just in the act of shooting. So the Knicks have to clean that up as far as in Game 4.
So I think I'm interpreting correctly. The foul discrepancy for you was justified. There's no home cooking, or I guess it would be the opposite of home cooking here. There's no real gripe about the officiating?
Not at all. In my point of view, objectively, yeah. You, right now, that's a conspiracy theory. Oh, where? They wanted Wembanyama to go another game or so or two as far as the NBA Finals. It doesn't work like that. No, absolutely not. This is the big leagues. This is prime time. This is a global an event, and that Wembanyama and his crew, they outplayed the Knicks as far as the physicality of the game. And that's why it's so important. Wemby was absolutely great last night. He made the Knickerbockers foul him. Is how he got it. He got it on rim runs to the basket on a high pick and roll. He got it as far as broken plays, and most of all, he got it when they had to. And that fourth quarter, Wemby gets 10 points in a quarter, and he got to the foul line. And he stuck his foul shots 8 for 9. But it was Wemby. Here's the biggest thing about it: against unbelievable physical defense by the Knicks and all the focal point of guarding him, he only has one turnover last night, handling that ball, and there's so much pressure of the game. That's commendable by him. He played absolutely great.
So now that the Spurs have sort of doused the flame of this red-hot New York Knicks team, you go in and you spoil, like you said, you crash that garden party. It was expected to be this triumphant return, championship-level basketball being played at the Garden for the first time in 27 years or whatever, and San Antonio comes out with the win. It had been such a roll through the playoffs for this New York Knicks team. Does Game 3 and that sort of calming effect on that momentum carry over into Game 4?
Yes, it does. The Spurs, yes, very much. And for both teams, in a sense where the first two games in San Antonio, it was the tale of two cities, meaning Charles Dickens, where in Game 1, the Spurs collapsed and had a 14-point lead in the third quarter, and they lost. And then in Game 2, that the Knicks had the lead in the fourth quarter, and they almost gave it away. If Wemby's missed a jump shot from the elbow, 17-foot or so, makeable shot goes in, then it's a different discussion. So every game has been close, and both teams have had moments where they were the ones who were the aggressor and were victorious going away in style. So now Game 4, it comes down to, as always, who can play physical defense without overly fouling, who controls the backboards, and who can make plays out of chaos. So last night's game, De'Aaron Fox, who struggled in game one, came back and he made that pull-up jump shot where they had to get a basket. That 9-year veteran sticks that shot to put him up. And then Stephen Castle, age 21, he sticks 2 free throws in front of an unbelievable chanting crowd, and that gave them a chance to hold off the Knickerbockers. So that's what will happen in game 4. What team can do things like that to go away? Now, as far as mathematically, big difference being 3-1 if you're the Knickerbockers up, or the Spurs 2-2. Let's go home.
Gordy Chiesa, our guest here on the Sean O'Connell Show, talking Game 3 and Game 4 to come in this NBA Finals series. A lot of us are looking now not only at the team matchup, but how the stars play and cancel one another out with their production. You've got Jalen Brunson, who is very obviously the lead dog for this New York Knicks team. He had 32 points last night. Wembanyama had the exact same number of points. So I guess on the score sheet, they did effectively cancel one another out there. If you're coaching up Wemby for this Game 4 versus how you're coaching up Brunson for this Game 4, what does it look like?
Well, from coaching up Brunson is that his Knickerbocker players, teammates, allies have to score the ball. So last night, in a very hard-fought game by the Knicks, Mikal Bridges and Landry Shamet, who played well throughout the whole playoffs, they combined shooting from the field 2 for 13. So they couldn't make a shot. And Karl-Anthony Towns in the second half was passive. He wasn't involved offensively. Some of it was his teammates' fault. Most of it's his fault. When you don't get the ball offensively, you've got to demand it by velocity cutting or crashing the offensive boards or running the floor to get yourself going. You just can't rely on your teammates to give you the ball on time in space. And with that said, it was still an unbelievable close game. That's how both teams are going to view it, where if we do a few things better, we can be victorious in the next game. And so from the Spurs point of view, is that they've got to continue to be physical and get after all the secondary players I just mentioned and make them have to play basketball through physicality. So as always, there's nothing regular about the postseason. In the regular season, it's a love fest. Everybody shoots three-point shots. The world is perfect. The metrics come about. If we take 51 three-point shots, we can win. When's the last time, Sean, in playoff basketball, you heard about the metrics?
Well, I mean, there's some people who are always obsessed with the metrics. That's not me, though.
I know. And the learning point about that is that there isn't any. It's all based on mano a mano. Sean, as always, when someone puts a body on you in a sporting event, how do you respond? When someone goes with you numbers on numbers, how do you respond? Most winning players will respond by what? Tenacity, but also technique. You need both. You just can't push the guy off and give him a forearm shiver. That is a foul. But you've got to have enough tenacity and courage to get that guy off you within the framework of the game and then keep your head about yourself. So usually speaking, in games 4, 5, and 6, is that the team that plays the smartest and the most aggressive will come out the victor. And that's the great unknown, is that you think you know, but you don't know until you lace them up on the court. And you've got to be able to play forward. You can't miss a shot backwards and then let it affect you the next 3, 4 possessions. You've got to look at the viewpoint forward. And that's the mental focus that is based on what? Your own personality, but Sean, but also based on your teammates and what's the dynamics of the court. And that's what makes it so interesting, this thing called the playoffs.
Okay, speaking of those team dynamics, for a Jazz fan, maybe a silver lining, you saw Jordan Clarkson, beloved Jazz man for a time in his career. He got 13 minutes in Game 3. He scored 10 points. He had a nice little contribution. He did turn the ball over a couple times, but, grabbed some rebounds, grabbed a steal. So I think on balance, right, he ended up better than gave more than he got. He was +8 on the night, and that's good for 13 minutes and a guy who has obviously seen his role reduced over what the expectation probably was. The reason I'm bringing that up is my question is, you just mentioned these team dynamics. You're all the way into this playoff series. You're all the way into this run, and I imagine the roles that these guys are going to play, they're relatively well established. You don't want to mess with it too much if you're either of these coaches, but if you get a Jordan Clarkson or a Landry Shamet or whomever, right, a Harrison Barnes who all of a sudden comes off the bench and does something really, really nice, does it change your approach for Game 4?
Yes, very much, because there's no hard feelings. This is the NBA Finals, and that whoever has the hot hand is going to play in that game. Jordan Clarkson, you mentioned before, he's beloved by the Jazz fans. He was the sixth man of the year back in 2021, which seems such a long time ago. Yes, it is. That's 5 years ago already. So Jordan Clarkson is he's a lightning rod. You put him in the game, and last night he performed. He made those 3-point shots, and he was aggressive offensively, and he did a lot of good things in that. Also, by the way, he's a native of San Antonio. He's going back home. And so these are all parts of the players, how they think. And I play him in Game 3, usually in the second quarter. What the Knicks need to do, they need to give Jalen Brunson a mental health break. There's so much. Let's not forget, he's only 6'2". People, Dylan Harper is 6'5.5". Stephon Castle is 6'5.5" with a whole bunch of muscle on him, and Champagnie. So in fairness to Jalen Brunson, he needs some of his teammates to come in the game and every once in a while have him not be the point guard, play him off the ball on the baseline so that doesn't have to advance the ball against pressure defense, and then use him on the second side to be more offensive minded, but also let him go in space versus he's coming down the floor, Sean, and they're trapping him and they're bodying him, which is perfectly legal in the playoffs. And mentally, he's almost like exhausted in the possession, and in the last 5 seconds, he has to score out of chaos. It's so hard to do that. He needs help from his teammates.
If you're giving the bulk of that responsibility to one teammate, if you're saying, hey, you pull a guy aside after a shoot around, after practice, and you say, look, we're going to give Brunson an extra 3-4 minutes tomorrow night, and we're going to let him reset. We're going to take a little stress off him, and that means I need more from you. Who are you giving that duty?
Anunoby's quiet. He got 28 last night, and he was quiet. And so Anunoby, I would try to get him every once in a while, beside not as the primary ball handler, but on the first side of the floor, almost like this once in a while, get him in a mid-post-up game and then spread the floor with the shooters they have and make Wembanyama make a decision. Do I double-team him in the lane and then expose the back line as far as a kick-out pass, or do I let him back down and I call it a shoulder-to-shoulder and then elevate over the top? Because he can score the ball, and that he is also a good three-point shooter. And he's an effective, a clever velocity driver. And so that would give Brunson, again, not all the time, but we'll say 3 to 5 possessions a game, especially in the early fourth quarter, they give Brunson a chance to recalibrate. This thing, it's so much the mental part of this. That's why these guys are so amazing. Let's not forget, Victor Wembanyama, Sean, is 22 years old. Castle is 21. These guys are so young as far as living on Earth, and now they're trying to do something that's spectacular that will be one for the ages. And that's how unique this thing called the NBA playoffs is. There's nothing like it. I had the pleasure to be involved coaching 149 playoff games. So I say with all sincerity, firsthand, there's like nothing like this, Sean.
Who's going to win Game 4?
Knicks. And then Game 5 back in San Antonio, and then Game 6, I'll tell you in a few days.
We'll let it play out at least that far, Gordy. What's your list today?
And think about this about Michael Jordan. All right, so here's the beauty of this thing called, again, the playoffs. So The last time this happened, Sean, was 1993. Okay, 1993, where three straight playoff as far as final games, the visiting team won. So the last time it happened was 33 years ago. That was the iconic series with Phoenix Suns and Chicago Bulls. And that's when Jordan scored 55 points in a playoff game, which was not his playoff high. One time Jordan scored 63 points against the Celtics in a playoff game. And so both teams in that series, Charles Barkley versus Michael Jordan, the visiting team won the first three games. So this shows you right now that it really happens, but it's happening right now in front of us with the Spurs and the Knickerbockers.
What's your list today, Gordy?
The list today, Sean, again, this is about three-point shooting, both for you and against you. The most career-made three-point shots in NBA Finals history. But it's only 12 players listed here. So most career-made three-point shots in NBA Finals history. Remember now, most of these three-point shots are hotly contested by challenging defense. You're in the playoffs and you're a three-point shooter. There's very few rhythm threes. They're trying to make you make a shot in the contested hand, which is so remarkable. Here we go. 11th all-time. Michael Jordan and Manu Ginobili, they made 42 threes in NBA Finals. Number 10, Kevin Durant made 43 threes NBA Finals. Tied for 8th, Kobe Bryant and Derek Fisher made 48 threes NBA Finals. Number 7, I had the privilege to coach this guy, Ray Allen, made 55 threes, including the one historic in 2014 where he backpedaled and made the three for the Miami Heat. Number 6, Big Shot Robert Horry has made 56 final three-point shots. Number 4 all time. Both these guys were specialists. They excelled in it. J.R. Smith and Danny Green made 59 three-point shots. Number 3, he plays for the Lakers as we speak. He's been in 10 NBA Finals. The last time was in the bubble in 2020. LeBron James. He had made 101 three-point shots. The last two, Sean, we all know very well. They did it with the Golden State Warriors. They're called the Splash Brothers. You can make a discussion. They're the best ever shooting duo history of basketball as a twosome. Klay Thompson, second all time. He made 106 three-point shots in the finals, and the number one player of all time to make the most ever finals three is Steph Curry with 152 three-point shots. That's my list of today. And add to Steph Curry. One time Steph Curry made 9 three-point shots in a finals game against the Cleveland Cavaliers in 2018. So out of that 152, he made 9 against the Cavs. Thus, that's my list of today.
9? Is that the record in the finals?
Yes, 9. Yeah, 9.
Did Dan Marley hit 8 one time in
Yes.
that? Okay.
Yeah, it just shows you how brilliant these guys are. So the question is always is you want to shoot threes but out of rhythm, and that the defense is so unbelievable fierce against you, you've got to stay true to your form. And it all starts with footwork. I just described perfectly Klay Thompson and Steph Curry, how those guys really do it. There's nothing like it as far as making rainbow threes.
Gordy, you're the man. I always appreciate your time. We'll see you on Thursday, all right?
Thanks, Sean. Peace out.
Great stuff, as always, from Gordy Chiesa. Reminder for all of you, Ron McBride Foundation is presenting a concert, The Head and the Heart, Saturday, August 22nd at the Utah State Fair Park. Tickets and all info are at ESPN700sports.com. You can also text HEART to 33986 for your chance to score a pair of tickets. You should always support anything that the Ron McBride Foundation does for obvious reasons. Head and the Heart, August 22nd, Utah State Fair Park. ESPN700sports.com for more info, or text HEART to 33986 for your chance to score a pair of tickets. I got a poll question for you next. It's the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. All right, poll question up at Real OC Sports on the old tweet machine. We got it. We're going to be doing polls now as we get into July and August, right? We do our over-unders. We do polls about our expectations for the upcoming college football season. I might, in that case, have to bite the bullet and pay for Twitter, which drives me nuts to even consider because, man, we are getting heavily demonetized here. We are buried on our polls. So help me out. Go vote on the poll at Real OC Sports. You saw the report that it is expected that Utah and Under Armour will terminate their agreement at the end of this year. Final year of the contract, not expected to renew. I think that's great news for the University of Utah. I know some of you out there are big Under Armour fans. Do not count me among you. I just don't like it. I don't like their stuff. Their shoes are abysmally bad. The cleats are bad. And there are some who are even more conspiratorial than I who think that maybe the Under Armour cleat quality would have something to do with some of the injury problems that Utah's had in recent years. So take that as you will. But you're going to have to find a new partner. 877-353-0700. Text me. Go vote on the poll. Who do you want to be the new partner? Right now, the apparel partners possible in college football are Under Armour, which you're already moving away from, so you're not going to re-up with Under Armour. Nike. While it is a Nike affiliate, the Jordan brand is a distinct brand that does its own distinct thing. So you can do Nike, you can do Jordan, you can do Adidas, or you could do New Balance. New Balance is an outfitter for some teams. And the Big 12 is over-indexed on Nike. Adidas, for me, I like what we saw with Adidas in the Arizona State uniforms when Adidas and Notre Dame were partners. Notre Dame is the wrong university to do anything experimental, anything different with uniforms. But if you take that away, some of the Adidas designs on their Shamrock series and stuff, like if it was anywhere else, I probably would have been cooler with it. New Balance is, man, we're going to have Jeff Schwartz on tomorrow. New Balance is just like so foreign to me. I've owned one pair of New Balance shoes and didn't like them. So I can't, I know that they're heavier in the basketball world now, and they are trying to make their foray into college football. I feel like I'm the wrong guy to answer my own poll from a taste standpoint because Nike, just get the Nike stuff. There's a lot of stuff out there. There's a lot of reporting out there that if you're not a big-time flagship type school for Nike, if you're just kind of one of their rank and file partners, you're not going to get great treatment. There are a lot of schools who, especially for the non-revenue sports, are flat out unsatisfied and unhappy with what Nike has done for their baseball team, for their softball team, for their track team, for their swim team. Now, football does not get neglected, and let's be honest, we're making these decisions based on football. A lot of the feedback I've gotten so far is everyone's like, no, it's got to be Adidas. We'll see. And then there's some other people who want this to be a pure business decision and say, just whoever's going to give you the most money because it's all about money right now. You're absolutely right.
Is that what Otro Capital thinks, by the way? They might be the one. Well, when they're saying, hey, they're going to have a say in this, presumably.
So Li Ning is going to come in?
Yeah. Li Ning, Anta, perhaps.
I want like an old school brand. I want Russell Athletic.
Okay? Oh, yeah, big R.
I want
Fila.
You know what? Champion. Remember when Champion was a thing?
Champion still does shirts and
Champion
stuff
became
well.
ironically cool again.
Yeah.
What if we go like extra hipster? What if we go like a Carhartt?
How about Starter?
Dude, I would love Starter.
Tony Romo, come visit the campuses.
I would love Starter to be like, I don't want Skechers. Keep Skechers away. All right. Skechers thankfully doesn't make any football stuff. Pony. Remember the old Pony shoes? And you like would occasionally see Pony in like a Ross Dress for Less. You'd be like, where did they find those?
How about
Nordstrom
Puma?
Rack. In
But
all seriousness, the upfront, like, oh, we're going to give you X millions of apparel and X millions of dollars to wear our apparel. Here's the thing that matters that is not often considered. How much are you going to sell of your stuff? Utah is not Oregon. It's not a national brand. You're not going to sell a ton of, like, Utah football gear, no matter how well designed it is, at a Nike outlet in Orlando. But you're definitely not going to sell, even in the Utah bookstore, a bunch of ugly New Balance stuff, okay? So part of what you have to consider here is the merchandise sales and your share of that profit. Nike and Jordan are obviously the best case scenario for those. Adidas, again, if Adidas can meet you in the middle by giving you more upfront money and making sure you've got really, like, you will find me wearing Adidas if Utah ends up as an Adidas school. I can say this now that the partnership is coming to an end. The only Under Armour stuff, the only Utah Under Armour stuff that I wear is free. I just don't like Under Armour. I don't like their gear. I don't know why. I'm a brand hewer for Nike, I guess. And I'm not proud of it, just so you know.
Do you want to hear the amount of Big 12 schools there are Jordan brand?
Okay.
Just because you said over-index.
Is it 0?
It's over-index on Nike. No, Cincinnati is.
Okay.
Cincinnati is Jordan brand, and so is Houston.
Really?
Apparently.
I would not have said either of those are Jordan brand.
And then there are 10 other schools that are Nike. So it is very over-indexed by Nike. If you want to include Jordan brand as part of the Nike family, which they kind of are, you got 12 of the 16 Jordan brand or Nike. I would say I voted Jordan brand on the poll because I think it's cool. And I think they have, Jordan makes good stuff. I wouldn't hate Adidas. I don't know if you can trust New Balance in the apparel world, but there's other schools that are New Balance. I don't know. I'm with you. It's a good decision to move away from Under Armour, though.
Hold on. Who are the New Balance schools in college football?
I think Nebraska is one of them. Could be.
Really?
Could be thinking of someone else. Let's see.
Boston College. Boston College wears New Balance. What a random partnership that is. Apparently, New Balance.
I could be. I don't know. Maybe Nebraska isn't. They're not. They're not.
I think
on this list
Nebraska's been Adidas for a while.
Are they Adidas? That's what it is. Maybe it's probably just the N in Nebraska making my mind go.
I think Boston College is the only team that wears New Balance
in the FBS anyway. According to this list I found, the other schools are like Bryant.
Heck yeah.
Merrimack.
Yeah, Merrimack.
University of Maine.
Go Bears.
And Alaska Fairbanks.
Okay.
So the only FBS football school that's New Balance is Boston College.
Fun fact. The first time anybody in Utah saw Under Armour branding was Under Armour was giving apparel to Southern Utah University back in like 2001. It was before they were big. It was before they were anything. So maybe that's New Balance. They start with the Alaska Fairbankses of the world. They end up at Boston College, and then Utah becomes their flagship. I don't know. All right, got to take a quick one here. Kristen Peak is going to join us to preview the upcoming NBA draft. You know the players the teams at the top. What does the conversation behind the scenes look like right now? We talk to Kristen Peak next on the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. We are 2 weeks away from the 2026 NBA draft. Kristen Peak, NBA.com, NBA Insider, Draft Insider, joins us now to talk about what's coming in these next couple of weeks. Kristen, welcome back to the show. How are you?
I'm great. This is the most wonderful time of the year for me. I love this time of year, especially with this class.
So, Utah Jazz obviously sitting at number 2, and the obvious players are in the conversation there. AJ DeBonsa, Darren Peterson, I guess for some people, Cam Boozer gets to put his name in that conversation as well. In these next 2 weeks, we love the circus that is draft prognostication and the pre-draft process where everyone's trying to convince one another like, we don't really like this guy. He looks like he's a no-brainer. You got to pick him. But did you know about the fasciitis that he had 75 years ago? Is there going to be a lot of that in this year's draft, given what we know about the top 2 players especially, and the seemingly universal agreement that these guys are potential franchise changers?
I don't think there's going to be any sort of surprise on draft night for that first tier. We're talking about AJ Devonta, Darren Peterson, Cameron Boozer, and Caleb Wilson. I don't think anybody's going to be able to just crack that top four. But would it surprise me if AJ goes number one and DP goes number two to the Jazz, and then the Grizzlies decide to take Caleb Wilson over Cam Boozer? That would not surprise me. But the fact that there has been no solidified information, and mind you, this could come from last year's kind of chicken dance, or, with the fact that, the Washington Wizards won at Ace Bailey, and they were the only team that he worked out for. And the Utah Jazz snuck up and said, no, we're going to take him regardless. It doesn't even matter that he didn't work out for us. I think there's that sort of not animosity, but just sort of Washington is going to hold their cards close to their chest. And I've talked to AJ's camp several times, and they have never once said, yes, we have a scheduled workout this date with the Wizards. We have a scheduled workout date with the Jazz. And I don't know if it's just the Jazz waiting until the last minute to bring AJ in. I think Darren Peterson is going in this week if he hasn't already been in to visit. But, it's just one of those things where it's like a year later, we're seeing the reversal effect of, what's going to happen at number one. Is it going to be AJ or Darren Peterson?
If you had to put a percentage on AJ going one to the Wizards, what is that number?
I think it's like 85 to 90%. I mean, you look at his upscale in terms of what he projects as a 6'9", 6'10", two guard in the NBA. Everyone wants to call him a wing. I think he's going to end up being more of a two guard in the league, and his mid-range game is unmatched. The way he can elevate over defenders, I think his three-point jumper is going to be something that's going to come along as time progresses. But this is a guy, he works so hard at his game.
And then the excuses of, or the explanation of, hey, yeah, it was a creatine thing and this cramping thing. I was like, come on. Creatine's been on the market for 100 years. People have figured this stuff out. I mean, I was a skeptic on all of it, but that's sort of my nature. So how much of the process for him and his camp is just saying, hey, we've got it all figured out. You don't have to worry about the inconsistency in the NBA that we saw at Kansas?
I think the fact that there's nothing been leaked in all 30 teams. Remember, all 30 teams have medical reports from the Combine that every player that participated, and Darren Peterson participated in the Combine, they had to go through NBA medicals. And all 30 teams got these NBA medicals. So the fact that nothing has leaked, even from other teams saying, oh, it looks bad, it looks Darren Peterson, like that medical looks bad. The fact that nothing has leaked points to A-okay. Everything is fine. Everything is checking out. He's going to be just fine and healthy in the NBA. It was either a creatine with not being hydrated properly, with a diet that forced these full body cramps that then turned into a hamstring issue, and then he was sick with the flu for 2 games. And it was just a perfect storm, I think, for Darren Peterson. And what I know, I've said this several times, I'm a big Darren Peterson believer. And what I know of Darren Peterson and what I know him in terms of a competitor, as a teammate, as in terms of someone that loves the game of basketball, if he is not the number one pick and Washington just surprises everyone and DP is his guy, he is the clear-cut, I think, pick for the Jazz at number 2. I think he slides in alongside Keontae George very well in the backcourt. Both of them love to be in the gym. They're ultra competitors, and they're going to be able to build each other up and feed off one another.
This is an unfair question because I'm asking you to conduct a survey that you haven't had an opportunity to conduct, or I'm asking you to read minds, which is even worse. But if we went and we talked to the lottery pick type players in this draft, and you said, hey, would you want to play for the Utah Jazz? How many of those guys are saying, truth serum, anonymous poll, they don't have to worry about it? How many of them are saying, yeah, I'd like to go play for the Utah Jazz, given what, where we are, the reputation of the state, but more importantly, what this franchise is doing right now and the trades that they've made. And I know that these guys stay on board with that kind of stuff. How many guys do you think of the top 10 or 15 want to play for the Utah Jazz if they get that opportunity?
Okay, I'm not just saying this because I lived in Utah for 3.5 years, but I'm saying this truly because I've seen it through Keontae George, through other people that the Jazz have drafted. I think Ryan Smith, Danny Ainge, Austin Age now, everybody else in the front office has done an incredible job of tailoring to these players and changing the mindset of what people, the outside world perceives, Salt Lake City and the Utah Jazz and the culture to be. I think Ryan Smith is a driving force to that. I think, he went and he said, he's like, listen, we bring players in, and they have brought a lot of players in. And I credit that to in the sense of like, okay, yeah, they have the number 2 pick. They probably know who they're going to draft. They're still bringing in Michael Brown. They're still bringing in Darius Acuff. They're still bringing in Cam Boozer. They're still bringing in, different players because I think they want to paint this photo and this picture of Salt Lake City of like, no, in the future, we might not draft you with the number 2 pick, but in the future, this is a great place to live. And it is. I can attest to that. Like, I lived there for 3.5 years, and I think that's the driving force of it. So if I were to say, a percentage, number one, I think a lot of it has to do with playing time. So a lot of players would love to come to a rebuild situation, and the fact that the fans pack the Delta Center every single game, that's what you want to play for. So I don't think it's as bad as people think. I mean, I don't know, 78% of the lottery would love to be a part of the Jazz organization. Just knowing what Austin and Danny did in Boston, and they were the ones that drafted Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, and they won a championship like that. That matters. That pedigree matters. And being in a small market, listen, you're going to get a little bit more freedom. You're not going to be under a microscope as much as you are either in New York, Chicago, LA, the big cities, Miami. And I think players want to be in that sort of situation.
Kristen Peak for a few more minutes here on the Sean O'Connell Show, previewing the upcoming NBA draft 2 weeks from tonight. How far do we get down this first round before teams start worrying about fit and positionality and things like that? Is it the top 4 where it's just let's grab the best player available? Where is the threshold where teams start to nitpick on, well, does he fit with our guys?
I think the draft really starts at 5 with the Clippers. It'll be very interesting to see what they do. They are bringing in everybody, and I mean everybody, especially this week. They're bringing in all of the top guards. They're bringing in Darius Acuff, Kingston Fleming. Michael Brown is meeting with them, Keaton Wagler, and also Braden Burry. So they are bringing in everyone. And I don't know if that's just like dangling a carrot to other teams that really want a specific lead guard. And they're like, hey, we're going to bring them in. We can slide them along Darius Garland. We don't care. And just kind of, blowing that smoke. Or if they are actually interested in adding another piece to their backcourt. I mean, we look at the San Antonio Spurs. Everybody thought it was repetitive to get Dylan Harper last year, but he ends up working very well with Steph Castle and De'Aaron Fox. So I don't know if they're going to take a page from San Antonio and just be like, yeah, we're going to draft the best guard available for us. It's never too much to have a good thing in multiple, entities in the backcourt. So I think the draft starts at 5, and it'll be very, very interesting to see what the Hawks do at 8, whether they take best player available or they go get someone like Adai Mara or Merez Johnson or, Yaxel Lenborg, because they need that size in the front court alongside Onyeka Okongwu. So those are the 2 spots that I'm looking at, 5 and 8.
Do you have a favorite player in this draft, someone you think is going to surprise everyone?
Do I have a favorite player in this draft? Well, collectively, this is my favorite draft in the last 10 years. So I am a proud bonus auntie off court to multiple players. Do I have a favorite player? I think Christian Anderson is going to surprise a lot of people, especially where he's drafted. I think Cameron Carr is going to surprise a lot of people. He was by far the best player in the day one of scrimmages at the NBA Draft Combine. His draft range is anywhere from late lottery to early 20s. Remember, he was at Baylor this year with Tunde Yesufu, who elected correctly to go back to school. So, 25 of these players are my favorite players. Draft night is graduation for me. I'm just like, I'm sitting there right behind the green room, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, I'm so proud of you. I remember being in a back gym in Nebraska with no AC, watching you play. Like that's the sort of emotion that I'm going to have draft night. But everything from now until then, I'm very much, my head is down. I'm trying to get the best intel and best information out from these players and their agents.
I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about the finals while I have you. And the pessimist in me says it kind of doesn't matter who you draft if you're going to have to go up against Victor Wembanyama for the next 10 years. But these teams are going to do what they've got to do to try to compete. Right now, Spurs, Knicks, fascinating series. A home team has yet to win 3 games in. What do you think happens the rest of the way?
I love competition. I was happy to see San Antonio put together a full, complete game, especially on the road, especially in MSG. It's very, very hard to win in Madison Square Garden. So to be able to put a complete game together, Victor Wembanyama looked way more settled. We saw better guard play and better, PNR action with the guards and Victor and everybody else. Julian Champagny was hitting threes. Like I love good basketball, and I was happy to see the Spurs put together a complete game. Do I think they can pull it off against this? The Knicks look so settled, and Jalen Brunson just looks like he's on a mission, and the shots that he can get off is incredible. And when we look at this draft specifically, I think Jalen Brunson is doing a lot of favors for players like Darius Acuff, for Christian Anderson, for Ibuka Corey, the smaller lead guards that everyone's like, well, can they make it in the NBA? And everyone's like, well, Jalen Brunson is leading his team to the NBA Finals. So I honestly think the Knicks are going to win it at some juncture, but I was happy to see the Spurs get a win and, make it competitive. No more Knicks in 4. Let's make this a series. And there's nothing more as a true basketball fan that we want.
Would it be more fun these next 2 weeks if there was like is someone going to trade up? Are the Utah Jazz desperate to get AJ DeBonsa? Are you cool with the fact that we're probably getting chalk for the first 3 or 4?
I think we're going to get chalk for the first 4. Like I said, the draft starts at 5. Would it surprise me if anybody made a move with the Clippers at 5? No. Same with Brooklyn. I hear Brooklyn is being very aggressive, either trying to get into that top 4 because they have so many assets, or are they just going to take whoever the Clippers do or do not take at 6? But I do think this is a draft, especially because this is a draft that a lot of teams have targeted. We're going to see a lot of chalk in the first top 10 picks.
Well, we'll still be watching closely and hoping for the best with especially the Utah Jazz outcome. So we'll hold our breath for the next couple of weeks while you do all the hard work. Thanks for joining us, Kristen.
Thanks for having me anytime.
Kristen Peak, NBA.com, and many other places, Hoops HQ, et cetera, et cetera. Look, it's probably going to be Darren Peterson. I'm always a fan of when we get a little soap opera action and some unexpected things happen. And, in the NFL this offseason, you've seen all these big moves made, and maybe some of those big moves give context to why teams drafted the way that they drafted. I think in the NBA, especially with teams watching these finals, everyone's like, man, we have to load up. The arms race with Oklahoma City still right there, with the Knicks being what they are. but especially with San Antonio, as young as they are, already being in the finals. Brr, yikes.
Here's what would be a really funny outcome, OC. You heard Kristen allude to last year the Jazz taking the Wizards guy, and now the Wizards presumably have the Jazz's guy a year later, which is just wild how that turned out. What if Danny and Austin Ainge are able to get the Wizards to be way too in their head about that and actually do a favorable trade in the Jazz's favor
Okay.
to make that happen? I mean, how great would that be?
You're thinking draft day, Kevin
Yeah,
Costner?
Kevin Costner.
Okay.
Austin Ainge becomes Kevin Costner on draft day. But how funny would that be if somehow beyond the Jazz getting the presumed number one pick and that working out in their favor that way, there's somehow the Jazz get more assets out of it because they're playing chess while the Wizards are playing checkers. Not going to happen, but that would be a funny outcome.
All right. Daily Dump coming up next. I have a statement from Brett Yormark for you. It's the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. I hate to do this to everyone. You're going to have to add to the list of things you're sick of hearing me talk about. Just add it right now. Brendan Sorsby. Just add it now because I'm going to talk about it every day, probably all football season long if he's allowed to play. Daily Dump on the Sean O'Connell Show, brought to you by our friends at Valley Plumbing. The truck with the duck handles plumbing, drain cleaning, anything you need for your air conditioner, anything you need for your furnace. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. Adding some more services to the family of services that they provide sooner than later. So look for the truck with the duck if you are a home owner.
Should we just rename Daily Dump to Brendan Sorsby segment from now till December?
In today's Daily Dump, it is June 9th, 2029, and we are talking about Brendan Sorsby. He's still gambling in the Canadian Football League.
Or the latest NFL Europe, because that's
happening.
That's gonna be rebooted.
He's playing for the Ramstein Rams, and he was caught gambling. No, okay. So here's a pair of statements from Brett Yormark. The first was from yesterday. The ramifications of today's ruling are significant and could have broad impacts across college athletics. Thank you, Captain Obvious. That's not, by the way, in the official quote. Creating great concern amongst membership. I've been consulting with our key stakeholders and have scheduled a meeting with our conference ADs and our executive board this week. We're also in touch with Charlie Baker and anticipate the NCAA to appeal the order in the next 24 to 48 hours. We will continue to monitor and evaluate the situation. That's from yesterday when the ruling came down. Also, Charlie Baker can't help you. The NCAA, we already figured that out. Don't call Charlie Baker. Charlie Baker is useless.
Charlie Baker's statement was, "This is why we need Congress to fix this situation." That was Charlie Baker in the NCAA statement.
Find me Charlie Baker's salary, James, please. I want to know how much money Charlie Baker is making to be completely useless. And it's maybe not even by fault of his own, right? Because the system that we all live in has just he had a job that at one point was a very, very, very powerful job. And then it was just nope. You know what it is? Charlie Baker is the king of England. He doesn't actually have any legislative or judicial. He's just a figurehead. He's just a face.
And when the Big Ten and SEC inevitably break off from the NCAA, he'll be saying, "You'll be back."
It's he's the king of England. The royal family, by the way, most of the time when you put their face on a screen now, everyone's like, boo. We don't like the oligarchy. We decided we don't like royalty anymore. Charlie Baker, you've become that.
So this is the latest I could find of Charlie Baker's salary was from a year ago, from the fiscal year 24 tax return.
Okay.
Okay. In 3.4 million is what he made in 2023, his first year on the job. 2.6 million coming from base salary.
Okay. Please, somebody give me a $2.5 million job, a $3.5 million job, where my whole job is to just have people be like, "You don't know what you're doing." And they're like, "Well, I have a great idea, and actually I'm putting my foot down here, kids. There is going to be no more crossing the crosswalk when the red hand is showing." And everyone's just like, "Shut up," and walks. That's what this guy does.
And every time they ask him, every time he's asked about what about this incredibly huge court case ruling, he says, "This is why Congress needs to step in, kids." That's all he's been able to do.
I want to know if he even shows up to his office anymore, if he's just on a golf course and then he's like, "Oh crap, look what they did." He gets a text message, and then he just speaks into his Chat GPT assistant or whatever, and he's just like, "Draft a press release saying we need more help from Congress. Thank you." And that's his whole job. Dang it. Brett Yormark, don't call Charlie Baker, okay? But that's Brett Yormark's statement from yesterday. Here's today's statement. "We had a thoughtful and productive conversation with our athletic directors today as we continue to work through the broader implications of this situation. Many of our athletics directors voice their opinions. We will continue to have open and honest dialogue amongst the group, and until there is something to report, these conversations will remain within the conference. The long and short of that is we don't really know what to do with this. And by the way, I do know what you do with this. I have the solution for everybody. Just play. You're the Big 12. You're not the SEC. You're not the Big 10. Just go play the games. All right? Go play the games and beat Texas Tech. All right? Go beat Brendan Sorsby. Go beat Cody Campbell. And then, when you do, I want you to rub it in their face. Don't take the high road. All right? I want your team talking trash when they get off the bus. I want your fans throwing eggs at the bus.
No, how about you allowed the fans to throw tortillas at the Texas Tech sideline?
I want the tortillas to be printed with betting slips when they're thrown. I want everybody to make it just miserable for Tech. But don't try to hide from it. Just play the games. And you know why? Because you have to. And because Texas Tech has 100 other guys on the team that presumably didn't participate in any of this tomfoolery. Just play. If Texas Tech decides that the hill they want to die on is to become the ultimate villain in all of college sports, you don't have to contribute to that. You don't have to help by whining about it. Just play. Just go beat them. BYU, go beat them in a championship game. Utah, go beat them in a championship game. Arizona State, go beat them in a regular season matchup. Arizona, go beat them. Just play. And when you do, and even if you lose, don't take the high road. Say, hey, you know what? Wow, great game from Sorsby. 4 touchdowns. He shouldn't be playing. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. I am Kenny Dillingham. See you later. He shouldn't be playing. Will Hammond transfer here. Like, just take the blinders off. Take the governor chip off. And in the Big 12, I know that Brett Yormark's got to be careful. It's got to be delicate. But you just say, hey, we're not above the law of the land here in the Big 12. And if the law of the land is going to allow for this crap, then we'll just have to do it. We'll just have to watch.
Did you saw the Ross Dellinger article about lots of Big 12? You alluded to a lot of the rumors around it, but lots of the ADs in the Big 12, including the Kansas State AD, Gene Taylor, who was named in the article, the Georgia AD, who's also on the NCAA Oversight Committee, saying, "What we got to find a way to have our schools be allowed to not play Texas Tech in any sports," which is just such a drastic and unrealistic move. As much as I would love it, I feel like that would be great justice for the situation. It's just that's not going to happen, right?
Here's the thing. Just Brendan Sorsby is a good player. Brendan Sorsby is not going to make Texas Tech better than what they were last year. He's just not. Texas Tech's opportunity to make a national splash last year ended in a whimper in the college football playoff. It's not going to be better this year. It's not. Brendan Sorsby is not going to be the answer for you. Not the way that you think, especially when you're asking him to go out and play while he is public enemy number 1 in college football. Nobody is that immune to the external influences and voices. There's not one athlete, professional or otherwise, who can be that hated and go out and perform every single week successfully. It's just not going to happen.
Talk about irreparable damage to your mental health, by the way. Like, it's not going to be irreparable. I'm exaggerating there, but this is not going to be an environment that's going to be conducive to good play for him, you would think. The other thing about it, Utah clearly saw and exploited a big-time weakness in his passing ability last year when they beat him 40-10 or whatever it was.
45-14.
45-14 last year at Rice Eccles Stadium. He is a very talented quarterback. He is not without his flaws as a player. He obviously has had some flaws come out here as a human being as well. Like this is I completely agree with you. This is not Arch Manning starting for Texas Tech. This is someone way lower level than that, who is an upgrade from their quarterback last year.
Look,
not Baron Morton, but the defense is not as strong. It's not as strong as the talent as it was last year. This team can be beaten.
Give Texas Tech exactly what they are asking for. Let them die on this hill. Watch them wither on the vine that they planted. Let Cody Campbell have to go out there with every single article, every interview, everybody. Joey McGuire, guess how many times you're going to have to answer this question at Big 12 Media Day? 500. Well, no, it's not going to be 500. I'm only doing 20 interviews. Wrong. 500 times. Because when he comes to our table, I'm going to say, do you really want to die on this hill? I'm going to say it. Coach, thanks for being here. What do you think of your team this year? Why is he so important for he's never played it down for you. Why is this young man so important to your efforts when you have a proven commodity coming back from an injury, presumably in week 3 or 4?
And you can tell him, we know better than most any team in the country how good Will Hammond is.
I was being like 100% serious about that rant in segment number 1. If I'm Will Hammond, I want out of Lubbock, Texas yesterday. Aggressively and immediately. I want gone aggressively because I am associated with this farce. I mean, let them have what they want. Brett Yormark, Big 12 athletic directors, let Texas Tech be exactly what they want to be this year. Let them be the team that everybody talks about for all the wrong reasons. Let them be a Kardashian. Do it. Do it. Let them have it. And say that that's exactly what your intent is.
The red dashes, not the Red Raiders, the red dashes.
I want somebody, and you know what? I hope it's Mark Harlan. I want somebody to have the cojones in this conference to say, we know it's crap. Texas Tech knows it's crap. But you know what? We're going to give them what they signed up for. And if we have an opportunity, we're going to go out there and we're going to beat them on the football field. The same way in the past we've had to beat teams with steroid users. The same way in the past we've had to beat teams with drug abusers. The same way in the past we've had to play against teams who had academically ineligible players that they were hiding and they were letting them play anyway. The same way that we've had to go out there and we've had to beat teams that had guys that didn't belong there, we're going to go out there and we're going to beat these guys too.
The best revenge here, the best way to express your anger over this whole thing is just to kick their ass, right? And I told you off air, OC, on my drive here, I was thinking about how can the Big 12 ADs and people like the Georgia AD, Josh Brooks, make good on their strong statements yesterday from Ross Dellinger's article and not find a way to not play Texas Tech in any sports, whatever. And I'm like, the only way to do it, because the Big 12, they could say, you know what, we're going to rule Brendan Sorsby ineligible. But then they're just going to go back to the Honorable Justice Curry in Lubbock County, and he's going to say, well, okay, here's a temporary injunction on the Big 12 then, too, and it's still just a 2-game suspension. All you can do in order to not play Texas Tech is all they can do is forfeit those games, and then Texas Tech is going to be undefeated anyway.
Which is the whole point of like what I'm saying here. It's a fool's errand for anybody to try to occupy some moral high ground with this whole situation. If this dumbass judge decided that he doesn't care and is not trying to protect the integrity of college sports, fine. Let's just all admit there's no integrity in college sports. There's no integrity in professional sports. And let these guys play. And Brendan Sorsby, good luck, man. Do you know how many people are going to be putting a helmet on your kneecap? Do you know how many teams are going to be gator rolling you at the bottom of piles? Do you know how many targeting penalties are going to be incurred against Texas Tech football? Do you know how many times you're going to enter concussion protocol this year? Do you know how many fights your offensive line is going to get in trying to protect your dumbass? It's so ridiculous. Texas Tech, Cody Campbell, with your big money billionaire kind of like, I can't do anything wrong. Dude, you screwed this up royally. So badly. You could have gone out and got anyone. You didn't do the proper due diligence on choosing the guy from Cincinnati. You failed. You screwed it up. And instead of just admitting, crap, you know what? We're going to have to fight through a couple of games. We're going to have to play Abilene Christian without him. We're going to have to play against Houston without him. But we'll get Will Hammond back sooner than later. And he's a hell of a player, because he is. Instead of just being like, man, this is football, this is how things are, you're like, well, I've got $5 million. I need to fix this problem. I need to plug this hole. Okay, cool, man. This time you did it wrong. And instead of just accepting that you did it wrong, you spent the money the wrong way and going to get some of that money back probably. You could have done it legally. You're doubling, tripling, quadrupling down, and you are dragging the name and the reputation of your beloved university further down than it ever. I never could have imagined that Texas Tech would be this nationally relevant, and it's for the exact wrong reason.
Do you want to know my favorite quote from all of the high and mighty talk? And a lot of it's in Ross Dellinger's article on Yahoo Sports. You want to know what my favorite quote is from yesterday? Georgia AD Josh Brooks, also on the NCAA Football Oversight Committee. If a state court wants to dictate eligibility rules, they can play themselves. Throw Justice Curry out there. He could be quarterback for Texas Tech.
But Georgia, what are you talking about, Georgia? You've got 180 guys on the team that don't follow the law.
I mean, and listen, just to be fair to Josh Brooks, he feels because he's on an NCAA football an important NCAA football committee, he's feeling like he should be able to, and he probably is justified in feeling this way, I should be able to talk about college football as a whole here, representing all of college football and not just because he happens to be the Georgia AD. I feel like that's more where this statement's coming from, but yeah, it's glass houses, like you said. Like, Georgia, you have no high ground to stand on.
0626. It'd be great to see the playoff committee take a stand if Texas Tech were to win the Big 12 and the playoff committee were to leave them out of the playoffs. Can't, though. You can't. Because guess what will happen there? Lawyers, judges.
Injunction. Oh, hey, the appeal's not going to happen until next February. Just like this one's not going to happen until coming February.
You can't. This, if anything, I mean, you can take this beyond the sports world, and this is just the exact problem with the American legal system, with the litigious nature of our society. James, I will tell you, I am never for the rest of my life going to accept a consequence of my actions. Ever. I have learned through sport, through covering sport, that anytime I do something I shouldn't do, I'm just going to find the right judge, find the right lawyer to get me out of it. I am never going to pay a parking ticket. I am never going to pay a fine. All right? If I got a late fee at the library, man. Temporary, we're going to string this bad boy out. This is the American way. Thank you, Brendan Sorsby.
You want some more good news, OC? The appeals process for this probably not going to be heard till February.
Correct.
The reports, but also, you want even more good news? Saying it facetiously. The Texas Court of Appeals, all 4 justices are Texas Tech Law School grads.
Okay, here's the thing. If I'm a Texas Tech Law School grad, this is the Stanford equation, right? This is where it's totally different at places like Stanford than it is at places like Texas Tech. We're seeing in Texas, the good old boys club in Texas, even if you go out of Lubbock County, you find a judge who knows a judge, who has a friend, who plays a poker game.
Apparently a decent law school at Texas Tech because a lot of those
like,
judges
hey,
went
man,
there.
Hey, man, like, could you maybe do us a solid and grant this temporary injunction? We can't do it because there's too many pictures of me wearing Texas Tech gear. And I know you're a Longhorn, but your son married my daughter, so would it be okay if you granted this? And there's, don't you worry about it. Come out to the ranch and let's have a couple of days worth of shooting wild hogs.
And by the way, you're gonna have to say hook 'em to me in exchange.
They're gonna we'll be in the fantasy football league together next year, whatever, right? So this big old boys club thing. If I'm a Texas Tech law school grad, if I'm a Texas Tech, and I'm just like, look what you've done to my university. You've made it so everyone hates us for a quarterback who has never played a down for us. I'm probably going like, you know what? I would recuse myself from these proceedings. I don't want to be part of this appeals process either. But that's not how it works in Texas. These guys, they circle the wagons, they round it up, they take care of their own, and that's just the way things are. There's nothing you can – so give them what they want. So just say, okay, cool, here it is. And by the way, if you win the Big 12 conference and you go to the college football playoff, let's say you win in a college football playoff. Let's say you win a couple of games in a college football playoff. Now guess what the conversation is about? It's not about how good your football team is, and it's not about how great your coaching staff, how great the job your coaching staff did. It's about this. It's about the fact that Brendan Sorsby should not be playing. Give them what they want. I got no problem with you going out and dying on this hill. Sometimes you just have to let people do that. How many times do you as a parent or did your parents do this to you? Right? Where it's just like, hey, don't do that. Don't do that. Don't touch that stove. Don't touch that stove. Hey, son, that stove is hot. Don't touch it. And then finally they're just like, all right, just let him touch it. He'll learn. And you touch then you cry. Texas Tech's going to be crying. Mark my words. Texas Tech is going to regret all of this. Every last dime they spent on Brendan Sorsby and on defending this whole thing, they're going to regret it. I promise you. I know this. We're going to double up, and guess what? On the other side, Ari Temkin is going to have his thoughts and share them here. Oh, wait, that's at 1:30. There's another thing that I wanted to get to here in the Daily Dump. James put it in his update. The Cleveland Browns, who just executed one of the blockbuster trades that we've seen in recent years in the NFL, sending Myles Garrett to L.A., getting Jared Verse and some picks back, they got some pretty bad news today. And it matters, especially for Spencer Fano. Tell you what that is next. It's the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. We're going to be giving away some tickets in this moment, and Hollywood Undead are coming to the complex on October 20th. We're going to give away some tickets at the end of this hour in about 40 minutes. Ari Temkin's going to join us in about 25 minutes. The Cleveland Browns sent a message to the entire NFL with the trade where they got rid of Myles Garrett. They said, all right, Rams, you're going all in on these Super Bowl hopes in this next 1, maybe 2-year window while you still have Matthew Stafford. And you've got this really talented wide receiver core, and you've got Trent McDuffie, and you've got maybe Aaron Donald coming out of retirement. We'll see. But most importantly, you've got Myles Garrett now, the best pass rusher in the league. Great. All right, we'll give him to you. You can have him. We want assets for the future. We're going in for what's next. We're going to draft better than we've drafted. We're going to stockpile like we've never stockpiled. We're shoring up our offensive line, but we're planning for the future. And when they sent that message to the league, unfortunately for the Cleveland Browns, one of their best players also got that message. Now, it's not as sexy as Myles Garrett, but Joel Bitonio is a 7-time Pro Bowler. He's tied with Myles Garrett for most Pro Bowl appearances, or 4th most Pro Bowl appearances, in Browns history. He is a highly respected veteran. He also is 34 years old, and he announced today that he's retiring as their starting left guard. He was their best offensive player for many, many years. Just like Joe Thomas was a staple on the offensive line. Offensive line is the place where offensive players can thrive in Cleveland because it's just a meat and potatoes position. It's like if you do your job, people can notice that even if everyone else around you kind of stinks and even if you don't have the right quarterback. So the reason this is relevant in Salt Lake City, Utah is because all of us are going to be watching Spencer Fano's career with great interest. And this is a guy that was going to be, I think, very important in helping him develop as an NFL player. One of the best things that can happen to you as a young player in any sport, as a young participant in any sport, is you have a veteran who's been there, done that, to kind of take you under the wing and say, this is how you do it. Nope, don't eat that anymore. Do this instead. Don't do that lift. It's going to wear down your body. Do this one instead. How do I know? Well, because I'm in my 30s and I've been doing it consistently for a decade plus now. I've been really good at this. I mean, we have Jeff Schwartz is going to join us tomorrow. He's a good friend of mine. He talked about Jordan Gross being that guy for him, right? As a 7th-round draft pick, as someone who might not make a roster, and you have a 1st-round draft pick who's been there, who's a staple, saying, no, let's do it this way. And taking guys under his wing. And that's why he's going to be a great coach at the University of Utah. But that's what you need sometimes when you're a young guy. And look, Spencer Fano will fill that with, coaching. He'll find a way to replace that influence in his own career. It's not like Bitonio was the only veteran guy, but dang, he's a lot better than any other option.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, a lot of, especially for football fans like me, a lot of good offensive linemen end up not knowing who they are, especially a guard. We tend to know who the best tackles are, right? And the center and whatever, but guards get kind of lost in the shuffle. I saw Brown star Bitonio retiring. I saw the headline and went, star? What, why is this guy star? Then I read the article and, saw his accolades. You heard me, parroting them in our updates today. 7-time Pro Bowler, that's really good. 2-time first-team All-Pro, that puts you in rarefied air. Yeah, that's a sneaky big loss for the Cleveland Browns, and yeah, it could be a big loss personally for Myles Garrett. Now, here's what you hope: one, what you said, the remaining veterans on the offensive line can be a good mentor. As good a mentor as Bitonio might have been for Spencer Fano. But also, you hope that guys like Bitonio and Joe Thomas, legends on the offensive line recently for the Cleveland Browns, are around the Browns facility enough that he can pick the brains of not just guys who have found a way to survive and be good players on the offensive line, but guys who Joe Thomas is a Hall of Famer. Bitonio has Hall of Fame accolades. He could end up being a Hall of Famer at some point. Hopefully those guys are around enough that he can pick their brains too, even though they're not on the team.
Former Nevada Wolf Pack.
Another reason why I didn't know who he was. He did not go to a notable school.
Well, look, and you can obviously excel from anywhere.
Absolutely.
But especially these offensive line positions. I mean, it's just a workman-like thing. This is a guy, by the way, also decorated for sportsmanship. He got the Sportsmanship Award, the Rooney Sportsmanship Award. He also was the Browns' Walter Payton Man of the Year. We've seen that with, like, Garrett Bowles being the Broncos guy. I mean, it's an impressive thing when your teammates recognize that you are the one who is most active in the community and the best leader to kind of influence things outside of the football world. So it's a big loss for the Browns organization, especially as they're trying to get these young guys to kind of shape into the right sort of thing. But this happens every year in football where a team will lose a guy and now that role passes to somebody else, right? I wish Joel Bitonio luck and good fortune in his retirement, but for Spencer Fano, and I'm looking at the Browns only through the lens of the Utah players that we are going to be rooting for in their success. And so for Logan Fano, but especially for Spencer Fano, who was going to be sharing that offensive line room, that's unfortunate, although not wholly unanticipated. This was a guy who had been contemplating retirement, and a lot of pro athletes will tell you once you start thinking about it, it's time to retire, because especially in these contact sports, the combat sports, these physical sports, if you're not all the way in, if you're not willing to do the work every single day to get ready for the next game, for the next competition, then you're probably, that means you're ready to retire. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's just a bummer for Spencer Fano, because this is a guy he could have learned a lot from. And honestly, the way that where they drafted him, they said they want him to be a franchise left tackle. He would have been playing next to this dude, like right next to him. Like,
yeah, Bitonio is a left guard.
Yeah.
So yeah, they would have been shoulder to shoulder.
But at the end of the day, it'll all work out. Just an interesting aside as the Browns move on from Myles Garrett, who had an incredible career there, and they bring back Jared Verse and start investing in the future. Part of that future will not be Joel Bitonio. 178 starts, which, here's a fun fact, the most by any Browns player since the franchise returned to Cleveland in 1999. So more starts than Joe Thomas.
That's wow. And that's like, you hear his credentials and accolades, you read them, and you go, it made me go, how have I not heard of this guy? And it's probably just because the Browns have been bad and he's not a left tackle. Like, I'd had heard of Joe Thomas, but left guard's not quite as sexy a position, and that's probably what it is. But like, really good player. It's wild that he's flown under the radar so much for people like me.
All other news before we get to Ari Temkin, of course, it is not just NBA finals season. It's also Stanley Cup finals season. And right now the Vegas Knights are up 2-1 on the Carolina Hurricanes. You've got game 4 tonight. And Vegas seems to be, when you watch, I was not able to watch the entirety of the Saturday game. It feels like this Vegas team is the better, more physical, more prepared team. It is also a team that, with what Mitch Marner is doing, I think has the best player, the best individual player in the series, right? One of the things we talked about with this Vegas team throughout the playoffs and the way that they got over the hump on the Colorado Avalanche, who were the best team in the regular season, they're getting big-time contributions all the way down the line. Not just the top line, not just the second line, not just your top pairing defensively. You're getting contributions from everyone. And even in these high-scoring games where the goaltenders are not really the factor that oftentimes you see in Stanley Cup finals or in deep into Stanley Cup playoffs, where sometimes it really just comes down to like one goaltender, one goalie deciding, I'm just going to become a brick wall here. I'm going to go win my team this series. I'm going to make sure that we end up skating off with the cup. You're not necessarily getting that, and I don't think either of these guys are truly capable of that in the net. With respect to what Hart has done for Vegas, and obviously he did some really impressive things in the Utah series. He did some really impressive things, but it's not dominant performance after dominant performance after dominant performance, and I don't think that's really going to tell the story here. What you're getting instead is you're getting, even in overtime and double overtime games, you're getting great minutes, great shifts from guys that maybe you don't 100% expect you're going to be getting those great shifts from. And then on top of it, you're getting Mitch Marner writing this incredible story for the season. He is going to end up winning the Conn Smythe. He is going to end up winning. I mean, even if they don't win this series, he has been the most impressive playoff performer throughout this Stanley Cup playoff in 2026.
It's all Connor McDavid. I don't remember if it was last year or the year before, but one of the 2 years that the Oilers lost in back-to-back finals to the Panthers, he won the playoff MVP.
Well, and watching him skate out to accept it is like one of the most – it's one of the most obnoxious and painful things for these guys, right? Because he wants the cup. He doesn't want an individual award.
Right.
And he's like begrudgingly out there while his teammates are in the dressing room sobbing probably. He's out there and look, deserved, right? You're not giving it to a player on the losing team unless they absolutely, undeniably deserve it. And in Connor McDavid's case, we watched him do it, and he was like almost apologetically accepting it.
Yeah.
Like angry about it, begrudgingly. But I think I think Vegas is going to win this series. Still plenty of hockey left to play. Right now, Vegas is up 2-1. In the last game, by the way, Mitch Marner, fastest to a hat trick, I believe, in Stanley Cup final history.
And then the Carolina Hurricanes were like the fastest to 3 goals on their own in like in a third period in a very long time, if not Stanley Cup final history. They were down 4-0 OC. I know you know this. They're down 4-0 going into the third period. Everyone's like, okay, Vegas is outclassing Carolina. This is a bummer because the first 2 games were so good. And then Carolina gets 3 goals in like 90 seconds. And it's like, okay, another classic Stanley Cup final game that ends up going to overtime. Vegas wins anyway. Just fastest to a hat trick. And then Carolina also has their flurry of 3 straight goals at some point in this game. Incredible.
Scoreless first period. Tomas Hertl gets a power play goal halfway through the second period, right? Then 16 seconds later, Mitch Marner scores his first one. Less than 4 minutes after that, he gets his next. 2.5 minutes after that, he gets his hat trick. So from 10:42 to 16:52, what's that, 6 minutes and 10 seconds to score a hat trick in the Stanley Cup. Now, that's a 4-goal second period for anyone out there. And then, of course, in the third period, Carolina gets 4 in a row.
And it was around the 10-minute mark when they started their scoring, too, if I'm not mistaken.
It was a 7:03.
Or 7 minute, okay.
And then they scored almost the equalizer was with less than 2 minutes remaining in the game. Again, on a power play.
That's why, I mean, I think I agree with you, OC. I begrudgingly picked Vegas to win this series beforehand because I'd prefer, with the way the Mammoth series turned out, I prefer Vegas to lose, right? Respectfully, but they look so good. But that being said, Carolina has been right there with them every game this series, even when they were down 4-0 and looked like they were going to get blown out of the building, blown off the ice. They ended up getting 4 goals in one period and hanging tight for another period before giving up the game-winning goal at the end of in double overtime. So Carolina is very much not out of this. I think I agree with you, though. Vegas probably ends up winning this series. No idea what happens tonight because this series has gone – the series has been bananas every game.
And by the way, Vegas, they live for overtime games. So this is they played plenty of overtime already. This was a double overtime game 3. I almost wonder if Torts is just like, it's fine, guys. Like, we'll just wear them down. Yeah. I mean, it's very much a strategy in like boxing and in MMA. There's combat sports, and this in football, you see it all the time. We're just going to lean on them. We're just going to grind on them for a while. All right. I know that this like outside zone, inside power, trap play, I know that this isn't sexy right now, but just watch. We're going to get into the third period, and we're going to get into the third quarter, and all of a sudden those holes are going to start to open up just because they can't. They're just exhausted by our pressure, right? I get Torts on the phone, James. Call him right now.
You know what? I did get him on the phone, and he said, I have nothing to say.
And by the way, you can't give him all the credit, I guess, but Vegas played they played a lot of overtime games this season.
Yeah, just to add some more context to Vegas lives for overtime. Carolina has 2 in these playoffs. They were undefeated up until last game in overtime. They handed Vegas their first overtime loss in these playoffs in game 2. So both of these teams seem to thrive in those long overtime type games, which is why this would not surprise me if it ends up going 7 and Vegas wins game 7 in overtime, maybe in Carolina.
I got to look up. I want to know, and this is one of the joys of having our own NHL team right now, because I've never paid attention at the level that we're paying attention now. But I would love to know the last time a team with less than 40 regular season wins won a Stanley Cup. When you just talk about the win column, there are, I mean, half the league had a better regular season than Vegas. I'm looking at the Eastern Conference in the Atlantic Division alone, everyone except for the Toronto Maple Leafs had more regular season wins than Vegas. Seven of 8 teams in the Eastern Conference Atlantic Division had more regular season wins than Vegas. 7 of 8 teams in the Eastern Conference Metro Division. There are 14 teams in the Eastern Conference that had more regular season wins, regulation wins, than Vegas did. In the West, the Mammoth had more, 43. The Minnesota Wild, 46. The Dallas Stars had 50 wins. The Colorado Avalanche, best regular season in the league, they had 55 wins on the year. In their own Pacific Division, the Edmonton Oilers, the Anaheim Ducks had more wins than Vegas's 39. San Jose, a team on the rise certainly, but far from special yet, also had 39 regular season wins. So there are, 18 teams? No, excuse me, 21 teams in the NHL this year had more regular season victories than the Vegas Golden Knights, who might end up hoisting the cup. That's bananas. They are just on fire in these playoffs. And what a case John Tortorella is going to make for himself if that's how it finishes, if that's how it plays out.
I was talking to Bill about this off the air. He filled in, of course, a special edition of the show on Friday. Didn't end up making it to the air, but I was talking to him about this off the air. Vegas, if I'm remembering some of the reports correctly, they have a plan in place for succeeding the coach that they fired, their Stanley Cup winning coach, and then before they hired John Tortorella, they wanted a guy with experience like John Tortorella to guide them through what they thought could still be a successful playoff run, and they were obviously correct. I feel like with how combative John Tortorella can be, not just towards the media, and I've learned a ton about Tortorella this playoff run. I didn't know much about him until this playoff run. I'll preface what I'm saying with that. But what I've learned about him, he's not just combative towards the media. He can kind of wear on front offices and players over time. I wonder, even if they win the Cup, OC, if it's the right thing for Vegas to keep him around as head coach. If they felt good about a succession plan with someone else when they let go of their other coach at the end of the regular season. Now, realistically, of course they're going to keep him on, but I just wonder how short of a deal that might be. 1 or 2 year deal. Don't know if it's in their best interest for him to keep Torts around any longer than that, just because he is a tough personality.
Well, it's the Jim Harbaugh thing.
Yeah.
It's like Jim Harbaugh in pro football wears on guys too quickly. Now in college, you can sort of bite down and handle it for 3 or 4 years, and then your eligibility is gone and you're out, right? And even then, it's debatable because he had to cheat to win at Michigan. But in the NFL, it was well publicized that, like, the 49ers players loved him in year 1. And then in year 2, they still liked him. And then in year 3, they were just like, enough. So maybe that's Torts in the NHL. By the way, it looks like 2002 was the last time that we saw a Stanley Cup winner with fewer than 40 regular season wins.
So that was Red Wings, right? Or was that?
It was the Detroit Red Wings.
Okay. I don't know how I knew that.
I believe also the second to last time this happened was also the Detroit Red Wings in the 97-98 series.
Okay. So something in the water there in Detroit where they play well in their history in the playoffs, even if they weren't and have a great regular season. Okay.
Guess who Detroit beat in 2002?
Was it Carolina?
Correct.
Oh, wow.
Carolina, what's wrong with you? You can't beat teams with 39 regular season wins? All right. Fascinating stuff. We'll take a break here. We'll come back with Ari Temkin, Big 12 Radio. He's going to have some thoughts on Texas Tech and Brendan Sorsby being eligible thanks to an injunction granted by a Texas judge. It's the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Oh, welcome back to the Sean O'Connell Show. Welcome in our good friend, Ari Timken, Big 12 today, Tune In Radio. Ari, welcome. How are you, sir?
I'm great. What's up, OC? How you been?
Really good. Really good. Excited that we'll be on a more regular conversation basis again with football approaching rapidly. Anything interesting happening in the Big 12 world these days?
No, can't think of anything really. I planned my summer vacation very well because I was in Maine for 5 days and I was on a flight yesterday coming home. So really worked out for me in terms of this news cycle.
So obviously, Brendan Sorsby granted an injunction that will allow him to be eligible for this year to play quarterback at Texas Tech. And I have ridden this roller coaster of like incredulous outrage to acceptance. I've gone through all the stages of grief. And now I've settled, Ari, on, you know what? I actually want everyone to now give Texas Tech exactly what they're asking for. I want Texas Tech to be allowed to play their full schedule with Brendan Sorsby as their starting quarterback, even if he maintains that position when Will Hammond comes back. And my only demand is that they be forced to taste the medicine that they're giving themselves. I don't want them to be protected. I don't want the referees to go into every opposing locker room and say, hey, just so you know, we're going to give, we're watching extra close. If you guys are going to be cheap shotting Brendan Sorsby, I don't want anyone saying, hey, guys, I don't want any bad words coming from the stands if Texas Tech is playing at your stadium. Like, I've settled on, I want Texas Tech to be given the opportunity to bathe in this muck that they decided to rake up for all of us.
Yeah, I mean, this is their bed. Now they've got to lie in it, right?
Sure.
Yeah, and look, I'm probably far more on the other side than most people. I think we live in a day and age in college football where nobody's following the rules, and that obviously has been the case for a long time. But now they're way more wide open about it. I mean, even so much as a few weeks ago, you have the athletic director at Georgia and the president of Georgia basically saying like, yeah, we made these promises to commitments in the transfer portal. And since the CSC has basically declined to say these are not legitimate NIL deals, we're still going to go ahead and do these and not really care what you think. Now, granted, I get that these are two different things, and I get that the word gambling in sports creates these, horribly negative emotions. But at the end of the day right now, nobody is following any rules in college football because as far as the NCAA's ability to govern, there are no rules. And so this is the standard. And look, I mean, I think there are probably a lot of people that agree with you in terms of like, all right, take your medicine now and let's see how good you are. And for Sorsby, I've been saying throughout OC that I thought that this was going to be the end result here. I'm not surprised at all. I've said for months now as we've been doing our offseason previews that I've included Sorsby in on it, and I think he's going to play, and I maintain that. But I also don't know that they or he are prepared for the media storm that is engulfing them right now and will continue to over the course of the season.
If you're Will Hammond, how are you supposed to just ride this out? Your university has chosen because of your injury and maybe a little bit of doubt about how quickly you can be back. Your university has decided to make themselves public enemy number one in college sports, in college football, so that Brendan Sorsby can play. He has never played a down for your university. He became a Texas Tech Red Raider like 10 minutes ago, and you're the backup for now, but you're a guy who's played impressively, won games for Texas Tech, and rather than give you 4 weeks to get healthy, 4 weeks of actual gameplay, I should say, to get healthy, they're like, no, instead, let's just die on this hill.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think there's, maybe not as much internal strife as we might think there is because of the head of the snake here and Joey McGuire and the head of the program. And, the fact that Hammond, who, I would imagine has had opportunities to leave, hasn't, I think says a lot about the culture. in a world in which only one quarterback can play, and so many quarterbacks transfer out for the option to play, Hammond has over the last couple of years shown a pretty high level of ability, and I think for Tech fans, they like to see more of it. If he doesn't tear his ACL, it would have been very, very interesting to see what decisions the Texas Tech Red Raiders would have made this offseason. Joey McGuire maintains that that's the biggest reason when we asked him this offseason that they, recruited Sorsby was because they just didn't feel confident in Will Hammond's ability to go following this ACL tear, and that they would rather take it slowly, let him, develop, let him get healthy, and go to Sorsby instead. The reality is Sorsby was the most sought-after player in the portal. Chris Hummer in April reported that LSU, Indiana, Miami were all in on Sorsby, and in a world in which Sam Levitt is getting a ton of money and Mensa is getting a ton of money, and we see the kind of quarterback money that's out there and available. It's really intriguing that Sorsby was the main guy that everybody seemed to want, despite kind of what we've seen from him in 2 years at Cincinnati. So, yeah, I mean, it's a great question. It's funny because I feel like I've heard very little about the Will Hammond aspect of this. And I think they were blindsided by the Sorsby stuff, and they try to manage it as well as they can by, still trying to be committed to winning while, making sure that everything stays in order. But, look, I think Hammond, expects that he's going to be the starting quarterback for this team next season. And, we'll see how it goes in terms of before then because, look, if Sorsby buckled under pressure when this team was 5-1 at Cincinnati, what's he going to do in situations this year where, he is public enemy number one. People are extremely upset about this, not just that, he's eligible to play, but that he's gambled on his own team in multiple occasions. And so, he is going to feel the wrath of fans. He's going to feel the wrath of the media. There is going to be so much more added pressure to him. And so I'm not sure that we aren't going to be seeing much of Will Hammond this year.
How much should we worry about precedent when it comes to this ruling in college sports? There's a bunch of pro guys that were like, wait, I didn't use up all my eligibility. Can I come back and play? If this dude can play, anyone can play. And obviously that's an apples and oranges comparison, but the ruling was based on basically the fear that there's a significant detriment to Will Hammond or to Brendan Sorsby's well-being if he is disallowed from playing. It's like I could make a pretty easy case that me not being allowed to go play another year of college football right now is not bad for my health. You know what I mean? What the precedent here is so dangerous.
Yeah, so there's a few things. On the one hand, there's the fact that, as you alluded to, this was not a antitrust ruling here. This was not a ruling, as Kessler's won many of these before, and quite frankly, my projection of Sorsby getting this injunction was based on my belief that it would be based on antitrust laws. And to your point, in his statement, the judge in this case basically says that he bought the argument that they made on Sorsby's behalf that this would be detrimental. Can't imagine the psyche of Brendan Sorsby right now and how much this is going to change based on the media firestorm that this has created and will continue to. His mental mind frame and psyche, even with playing, I imagine is going to be extremely fragile this year. Again, given too, we've heard historically that maybe he buckles under pressure a little bit. And the fact that, the next game that Sorsby wins in the month of November will be the first game, that he's won since 2023. The last 2 seasons, Cincinnati has not won one single game in the month of November. I'm not going to completely divorce Sorsby from that. So that's on the one hand, the fact that Kessler was able to win this case for Sorsby without even having to make the antitrust argument, which means, everybody wants to talk about, if Congress passed this law, then, this would have taken care of this ruling. No, it wouldn't have, because gives the NCAA an antitrust exemption. Again, Kessler was testing out sort of a different approach, and it won regardless. In terms of the precedent, look, OC, the reality is the NCAA is, a governing body in name alone. The only thing that the NCAA does at this point in time is put on championships for every sport that's not football. But this has been quite the road of L's for the NCAA, and they're going to continue to take L's. And that's like the precedent here is that there are no rules that the NCAA can enforce. And if they can't even enforce this rule, which I think we all agree is, really potentially dangerous and toxic to sports at large, gambling on your own games and gambling in general, that there are no rules that will stand up in court that the NCAA has. And the only way to change this is through collective bargaining. And I know we've been talking about this for it feels like over a year now, and that is going to continue to be the case. The decision makers in the NCAA and administrators across the country are slowly coming to the realization that the only fix is not going to come from congressional legislation. It's not going to come from anything other than sitting down at the table and negotiating a collective bargaining agreement of rules and stipulations in which to govern, because that's what the Supreme Court said, and ultimately that's what all these courts subsequently have decided.
Is Cincinnati going to get in trouble when it's all said and done? Because multiple reports out there that they knew about Brendan Sorsby's gambling last August, so before he played the season. And obviously the ruling in his favor is based on those things that you just talked about, the ability for the NCAA to potentially enforce rules infractions for, like, I don't know, athletic administrators at Cincinnati that maybe knew about something that should have been self-reported. And, like, that's a totally different can of worms. Is Cincinnati going to face any kind of blowback from this?
Right. And there is this level of irony, OC, from the standpoint of, these universities pulled together money, created this college sports commission to govern the sport, which the schools, again, agreed to and have paid for. And all we've seen then is all of those individual schools also pay, whether directly or indirectly, in order to break those rules. So the true winners here are lawyers, and all of the billable hours that they're getting on both sides. Again, like, you have schools and universities here that paid lawyers to create the College Sports Commission that are now subsequently paying lawyers to go against the rulings and the rules of the College Sports Commission. It is a weird and crazy time in college athletics, and maybe there's no better way to say it than that. Everybody wants rules. Everybody agrees there needs to be rules and uniformity. Nobody agrees on who it should impact. Everybody wants those rules to impact everybody else. Nobody wants those rules to impact them. And when it does impact them, they throw up their hands and they go take it to court, get an injunction, or just say, we're not going to abide by these rules anyways. So, it's a disaster from a rule standpoint. The NCAA, as we've mentioned, continues to take L's here. And, there's no, legislation or bill that's going to fix this. There have been 40 bills that have been introduced in either the House or the Senate over these last few years since NIL and the portal came on board, and none of them have even made it out of committee, OC. So, we're talking about multiple years. We're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars that have been invested in lobbying Congress in order to get a bill passed, and we've made zero progress on any of these bills whatsoever to even get them to a vote on the floor of either the House or the Senate. So, again, I think the CBA is really the one move here that could help to create, a level playing field, uniformity, and give us some sort of semblance of rules to follow. But I do not see Cincinnati dealing with any punishments here. If there's anything, it could be potentially, some that in some ways a state finds that Sorsby's broken a law, but to this point right now we haven't seen that, and there's been no criminal charges or investigation on this beyond just each state that he's gambled in launching an investigation to see exactly what's going on there. But the irony, OC, is all these schools want to follow rules and say they want to follow rules. Let's just say the NCAA came in and found something out about Cincinnati and penalized Cincinnati and did whatever. Now, Cincinnati, as a member of the NCAA, should take that punishment. But in most cases, what we've seen is them not do that and basically sue in order to get out of these punishments. And this is, again, going back to the idea here that the NCAA is really not anything other than a body that puts on championships for all sports except for football?
I think I know the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Why is this the issue that everyone's getting on their high horse about? Why is this the issue that the Big Ten and the SEC and everyone else is like, well, we might not even play these guys anymore? When in college sports, we have seen sexual assaults be ignored. We have seen domestic abuse be ignored. We have seen every alcohol infraction imaginable be ignored. We've seen every form of academic fraud be ignored. Why is this one the one that the non-participants, right, the other conferences and the powers that be elsewhere are looking over the fence and saying, like, oh, we disapprove of that specifically, and so we're going to have something to say about it?
I mean, OC, this is the crux of my entire argument, kind of contrary to public opinion right now. You know, there are no rules, and you have sitting athletic directors in the Big Ten and the SEC basically saying we need to break away to create our own rules in light of the fact that the College Sports Commission told them that some of their NIL deals are not above board. They're not kosher, right? So, like, you're 100% right in questioning this because, like, not only just going through the histrionics of what you're talking about, whether it's Baylor, whether it's Penn State. I mean, my goodness, we just got out of a cheating scandal that was completely swept under the rug from Michigan, right? I mean, Michigan stole signs and was, you know, there's pretty hard evidence to suggest that they, you know, sent coaches to other games and other practices to steal signs. Like, this happened and was completely swept under the rug. This is the one thing that it feels like is just completely everybody agrees on. Everybody, I mean, is rushing to social media to get on their moral high horse. It's sickening. I mean, it's like nobody, and I mean nobody, loves to take the moral high horse more than the media does, but social media is just insatiable when it comes to this stuff. And I get it. Like, it is the gambling piece. It's the Pete Rose. It's the, you know, it, like, there's so much history with gambling in sports that's, I think, where people create the distinction. But, like, let's be real. This is 2026. I just went on a vacation with my wife for 5 days to Maine, and they have legal sports gambling in Maine. It's literally, as soon as I stepped off the plane, I'm being inundated with advertisements to sign up for this website or go to this app or sign up for this and get this bonus. Like, the predatory nature of sports wagering in 2026, and, like, this is not the Pete Rose, Black Sox going to Vegas and meeting with the mafia to throw games. Like, the idea of sports gambling and sports wagering, that's the way that we think about it, as opposed to just how ubiquitous it is in sports today. These are two completely different realities, and yet people are taking sort of a standard from the 1990s into a 2026 argument about sports gambling. It's a totally different world.
Well stated, man. It's something that we're just going to have to live with moving forward until somebody can figure out how to peel away from a toothless enforcing body and collectively bargain with athletes, and all of that is just such a complicated mess. But only a couple more months until actual football, and of course we're a month out from where we'll be down there in Dallas for, or I guess was it Arlington? Frisco? What's the actual? It's Frisco for Big 12 Media Days.
Yeah, you've got, you know, it's fun. I mentioned I was just in Maine. It's so beautiful up there, as it is as I was in Salt Lake last year and went skiing in Park City. Like, Dallas is just hilarious. Like, I love it. I live here, but it's a land of strip malls as far as the eye can see. And yeah, I mean, what the confusion you just had is basically like most people when it comes to Dallas, because it's the Metroplex, right? It's Dallas, it's Irving, it's Las Colinas, it's Arlington, it's Fort Worth, it's Grand Prairie, it's Frisco, it's Allen, it's just an endless loop of the same exact strip mall with CVS and Target and Chili's endlessly. So it's basically the same exact place cut and pasted in different designs all across the city. So yeah, your confusion is I think widespread and held, and it will be officially at Frisco, though AT&T Stadium is the home of the Cowboys, and we have had Big 12 Media Days there in the past. But I do think that the Star in Frisco is a better is a better venue for it as it was last year. So I'm looking forward to seeing you, buddy.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing you. Thanks for hopping on again today, and we will we'll break bread. We'll share thoughts sooner than later. Thank you.
Sounds good. Well, take care.
Ari Temkin, great stuff from him as always. Big 12 today on TuneIn Radio. Brendan Sorsby is eligible, and the ramifications of that are far-reaching. But I think the best case for the Big 12, for Utah, for BYU, just go play. And if you end up facing them, beat them. We'll give away some tickets, 2 tickets to In This Moment and Hollywood Undead next with some trivia. It's the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. All right, some tickets to give away here In This Moment and Hollywood Undead coming to the Complex on October 20th. 877-353-0700. We were talking about this. I was lamenting the fact that longtime standout on the Cleveland Browns, Joel Bitonio, is officially retiring, and so he will not be playing alongside Spencer Fano. How many times did Joel Bitonio make the Pro Bowl? 877-353-0700. He contemplated retirement last year. He was going to be an unrestricted free agent, but he had stated before he wanted to spend his entire career in Cleveland. He is retiring instead, so he did spend his entire career in Cleveland. Just doesn't overlap with our guy Spencer Fanos. Final segment of the show, Crosstalk, brought to you by our friends at Advanced Window Products, 801-850-9100, $2,500 off, 10 windows or more. Beautify your home, make it more energy efficient. Make an appointment today. It takes about 6 to 8 weeks from the time you get that first appointment till the windows are installed and done and warrantied for the life of your home. So get on the phone today, 801-850-9100. Spence Checketts in the drive coming up next. Hi, Spence.
Hello, Sean. How are you?
Great.
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
What's going on?
You know, the Sorsby stuff is crazy. We were talking about that. Your Knicks are coming back down to reality a little bit after losing game 1 at the Garden. I know that you spent a little bit of time trying to secure a ticket or two, but what are we looking at there?
Option to buy.
Oh, option to buy.
Yeah.
Option to buy was the final say there?
Yeah.
At what price point are we talking about?
An aggressive one. My son went last night. He and my brother were able to get 2 tickets. They weren't great seats, but they were able to secure them. Took them 2 hours and 30 minutes to get in the building.
Security lines and such?
Yeah. Yeah, Trump was there. It changed the entire dynamic. Like, there are interviews going around. Like, people showed up early to kind of get into the building as soon as they could, and they barely were able to get there in time for tip.
Wow.
So, yeah, from what I understand, even in the Upper Bowl, there's a piece in The Athletic today. People were paying $11,000 for Upper Bowl seats. $11,000 for Upper Bowl seats.
The get-in price for Game 4 is about $4,500 for seats in the 400 level.
That is just
so that's at behind the baskets, in the rafters. Okay.
Yeah.
The guy who changes the light bulbs walking on the catwalk.
Yeah.
He's going to be in front of you, and it's only going to cost you $4,500.
And I was, because I watched the game last night, and I had a handful of friends there, and my brother and my son, so I'm texting with them to try to get a feel for what it was like in the building, because it didn't sound the way that I thought it was going to sound. It didn't sound the way it did when Larry Johnson hit his 4-point play against the Pacers in '99, which was the loudest moment I've ever experienced in any building anywhere, including Jazz Finals at the Delta Center. And so really what Jim Dolan did, because he's such a dweeb, he's such an idiot, he's such a bad person, is he ruined the entire vibe by making this happen. Because the security lines were hours long. They priced Knicks fans out of the building. And the fans I talked to, they were in MSG last night, were like, you know, it was a good crowd, but it was not a great crowd. It was not a New York Knicks crowd. So the decision from ownership, and Dolan is just, he's a horrible person. He's unethical. He's a bad guy, okay?
Uh-huh.
He prices his best fans out of the building, and then he invites his buddy Trump in, and new security lines were going to be 2 to 3 hours long. By the time people got in the building, they were, like, tired. And everybody who I knew that was in the building was like, dude, this is not the crowd people were expecting at MSG. I'm not saying that's why they lost. Some people are. Some Knicks fans are saying that's why they lost. But it would be quintessential Jim Dolan to do something as dumb as possible when his team has a chance to win a championship for the first time in 53 years, and he's the one that gets in the way. It would just be perfect. And I would not be surprised at all.
Speaking of the current president, Kyle Whittingham, I have on very good authority. Kyle Whittingham was golfing at Bedminster, Trump National Golf Club.
With Trump?
I don't know if he was golfing. Well, he must have been golfing when Trump was there, because the only way I have this information means that the president was there.
Did you get it through the Secret Service?
Maybe.
Sean, you have connects with the Secret Service?
I might.
Can you get people into the garden on time?
I could get myself into the garden on time because of that.
Okay. Huh. Yeah, it's too bad that this has become front and center. Give me the Sorsby take. Give me a truncated in a vacuum Sean O'Connell Sorsby take.
So went through the stages of grief, right? The denial and the anger and the resolution. I'm at the resolution now, and my firm opinion is give Texas Tech what they're asking for. Let them play with this guy all season long. Let him face the venom and the vitriol of every fan base from here to Fairbanks, Alaska. Let them be public enemy number one in college sports. Let them be the face of the broken system. And, let Cody Campbell do every interview and let Joey McGuire and Brendan Sorsby do every single interview for the next 6 to 8 months and beyond for the coaches, by the way, where all that is talked about is, do you really think this guy should be playing? Do you really think this is about his mental health, or do you think this is about your team needing a starting quarterback?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're going to have a chance, hopefully, to talk to them at Big 12 Media Days, although I'm sure they're going to be very, very, very parsimonious.
My guess is Sorsby won't be there.
Well, Joey McGuire has to be there, and he's probably going to pull a Coach Prime where he does like one national interview for obvious reason, but give them what they want.
Mm-hmm.
If they think that this guy is the savior of their program and he's going to be the thing that elevates them from what they had last year, generationally great defense that couldn't get them beyond the first round of the college football playoff, you think that 11 for 21 Brendan Sorsby is going to be that guy for you this year, and you're willing to put him in the eye of the storm every single weekend in order to prove that? Fine. Go be those guys. And just, all these conversations about, we shouldn't play them, don't schedule them in any sport. Stop it. All right? You played a sexual assaulter. You played a gambler before. You played someone who cheated on every assignment and test. You played against someone, and you started someone on your own team that doesn't even know how to read. You got the guy that's coming off of 4 DUIs. Like, every school has its skeletons in the closet. We all climb off our high horses, and you punch each other in the face. And Brendan Sorsby ain't that dude. He's not worth it for Texas Tech. He is not worth the Big 12 dying on some hill of like, we're not going to play them. They can't win the conference championship. No, give them what they want.
I thought the Thamel tweet was fake. When I saw it, opened up my phone, saw his tweet, I'm like, that's not real. So I'm still quite stunned, to be honest. In one way. In the other way, this seems to be how the system works right now, where you don't get it from this judge. And when he hired Jeffrey Kessler, that dude just does not lose because he finds angles, and he's the best at what he does and has been for a generation. And if you don't know who Jeffrey Kessler is, look him up on your, I don't know, is it AI these days where everyone's searching? Your preferred
I still use Google
search engine. Look up Jeffrey Kessler. Look at his past. He is the Michael Jordan. He is the Babe Ruth, the greatest of all time in whatever endeavor. Jeffrey Kessler is that. When I saw he hired Jeffrey Kessler, I'm like, at some point he's probably going to find a way or an angle. But where I'm stuck on this is, and you know this, the biggest fear of anyone who is part of a governing body in sport, if you're a commissioner, if you run a team, is your consumer base believing your product is compromised, because then you're WWE, and a lot of people love WWE. That's fine. But what separates pro wrestling from pro basketball, pro or college, we're throwing them all together, from basketball, baseball, football, hockey, soccer, those other sports, what separates those sports from the scripted, televised WWE is the authenticity of the product. And if your consumers start to question the integrity of your approach, then I think you're going to see a lot of people start to tune out. At least that's always been the narrative. Maybe that doesn't matter anymore because nothing seems to matter anymore. I don't know.
Well, I mean, look, this judge obviously is like, well, okay, I guess we're going to live with that risk. And you're absolutely right, Spence. Someone texted in today and said, are we sure that Brendan Sorsby didn't throw the game against Utah last year?
Exactly.
It was his worst game of the year.
Exactly.
Are we sure?
We're not, and that's the problem.
Well, the funny thing is like, never even crossed my mind.
Mm-hmm.
Even when we found out he was better, I'm just like, this guy's not that good. Utah smashed him.
Yeah.
Or did he throw the game?
That's the problem.
You're right. You're absolutely right. That's the problem. And again, go ahead, Texas Tech. If this is really what you want to do with a program that finally was getting a little shine and a little bit of love, if you really want to be the evil empire and the poster boys of everything that is wrong. Go for it, man.
Yeah.
Cody Campbell, there are way better ways to spend your money. You're an idiot.
Yeah.
You went from being one of the most important and influential people in college sports to just being like a petulant, I can have what I want because I'm rich enough to have it kind of guy.
Yep.
It's disgusting.
It's disgusting, and it's also capitalism. It's kind of the way things have gone as of late. And it just, at some point, do you just shake your head and say, all right, whatever, you know?
The thing that I'm excited about, I've learned a lot of things from sports, a lot in my lifetime. I'm very happy. And I'm very happy that at 42 years of age, I learned the lesson that I will no longer accept any consequences of my actions.
I guess that's the good news for all of us then, right?
Look, anytime I do something wrong, I'm going to deny.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to make it about my mental health. I'm going to get a good lawyer.
Yeah. And you'll come out the other side on top.
And I'll just be like, what? Are you saying that I did something wrong? What do you mean you're going to – if you fire me from this job because of an FCC violation – detrimental to my mental health, and now you can't do it. Sorry, James. I'm going to start dropping F-bombs on air, and you can't touch me.
You just gave me a genius idea. It's going to be a fun show today.
All right. Stay tuned for The Drive. Thanks for listening to the Sean O'Connell Show. We'll do it again tomorrow on ESPN 700 and 92.